Baby found a German shepherd hanging from a bridge by its collar. What he did next, Eve? Everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen will grab your heart and never let go. What this little boy did when he found a dog hanging from a bridge will leave you in tears. Like, share, and tell us where you're watching from in the comments below. The morning mist hung low over Riverdale Creek, painting the world in soft grays and blues. 5-year-old Noah's breath made tiny clouds in the chilly dawn air as he clutched his small tackle box, practically skipping to keep up with his grandfather Charlie's long strides. This was their special time, just the two of them, fishing as the world woke up. "Hurry, Grandpa! The fish wake up early, remember?" Noah tugged at Charlie's weather in hand, his blue eyes wide with excitement. Charlie chuckled, the sound warm and rumbling like distant thunder. "The creek's been there for 100 years, little man. It'll wait another 5 minutes for us." The old wooden bridge came into view, its planks dark with morning dew. It wasn't much to look at, just a simple crossing built decades ago, now rarely used since the new highway went in. But beneath it was their secret fishing spot, where the water ran clear and deep, and the trout seemed to line up just for them. "Last one, there's a rotten egg!" Noah darted ahead, his sneakers slapping against the muddy path. Charlie smiled, watching his grandson's boundless energy with a mixture of amusement and envy. At 67, his knees protested even this gentle morning walk, but Noah's laughter made every ache worthwhile. They settled at their usual spot, where a flat rock made the perfect seat for Noah, and Charlie had worn a small depression in the soft earth from countless mornings just like this one. The rushing water sang its endless song, drowning out the distant sounds of the waking town. "Now remember," Charlie said as he helped Noah bait his hook, "patience is a fisherman's best friend," Noah finished with practiced precision. "You say that every time, Grandpa." "Because it's true every time," Charlie winked, casting his line with the easy grace of decades of practice. The water bubbled and churned, catching the first rays of sunlight that filtered through the trees. Noah's face was a picture of concentration as he mimicked his grandfather's cast, his tongue poking slightly from the corner of his mouth. For 20 minutes, they sat in comfortable silence, the only sounds the rush of water and the occasional splash of fish too clever to take their bait. Then Noah's head snapped up, his expression suddenly alert. "Grandpa," he whispered, "do you hear that?" Charlie tilted his head, listening past the familiar sounds of the creek. "Just the water, buddy. Maybe a bird or two." "No," Noah insisted, setting down his rod. "It's like crying, but not people crying. Different." Charlie listened harder but shook his head. "Probably just the wind through the bridge planks. Makes strange sounds sometimes." But Noah was already standing, his fishing rod forgotten. "It's coming from up there." He pointed toward the underside of the bridge. "Someone's hurt, Grandpa. I know it." Charlie sighed, his knees cracking as he stood. "All right, little detective. Let's take a quick look, then back to fishing, okay?" Noah was already scrambling up the small embankment that led to the bridge's edge. Charlie followed more slowly, one hand on his lower back. Kids and their imaginations, he thought fondly. Probably heard a squirrel, or... The sound hit him then, a strangled, desperate whimper that sent a chill down his spine. That was no wind, no squirrel. That was an animal in pain. "Grandpa! Grandpa, hurry!" Noah's voice had risen 2 octaves, tight with panic. Charlie quickened his pace, heart suddenly hammering. He found Noah standing frozen at the bridge's edge, his small body trembling as he pointed toward the middle of the structure. "Look," he whispered, tears already streaming down his face. "Someone hurt him, Grandpa. Someone hurt him bad." Charlie's eyes followed Noah's pointing finger, and his heart sank like a stone. Hanging from the bridge railing by its collar, a German shepherd dangled precariously over the rushing water. Its paws barely touched the water's surface, forcing the poor animal to stand on its hind legs to keep from choking. Its tongue lolled from the side of its mouth, and its eyes were wild with terror and exhaustion. "Jesus Christ," Charlie breathed, forgetting to mind his language around Noah. This was no accident. The dog's collar had been deliberately tied to the railing with thick rope, leaving the animal to slowly strangle itself or drown in the rising water. "Grandpa, we have to save him!" Noah was tugging frantically at Charlie's jacket, his voice breaking. "Please, Grandpa, please! He's so scared!" Charlie assessed the situation with growing dread. The bridge was old, its wooden planks rotting in places. The railing itself looked unstable, and the water below was running fast from the spring melt. If he fell in trying to rescue the dog, both of them could be swept away. "Noah, I need you to listen," he said firmly, kneeling to look his grandson in the eye. "This is dangerous. That part of the bridge might not hold my weight, and the water's moving too fast." "But he'll die!" Noah's face crumpled, his eyes fixing on the struggling dog. "Look at his eyes, Grandpa. He knows we're here. He knows we can help." The dog's eyes did seem to be locked on them, a glimmer of desperate hope visible even through its terror. As they watched, it let out another strangled whimper, its legs scrabbling to maintain footing on the slippery rocks beneath the water. "We should call animal control," Charlie said, already reaching for his phone. "They have the right equipment, the training for this sort of—" "There's no time," Noah's small hands balled into fists. "You always say we have to help those who can't help themselves. You say that's what makes us good people." Charlie felt those words hit him squarely in the chest. He had said that many times, usually while telling Noah stories about his days as a volunteer firefighter. Now his own wisdom was being thrown back at him by a 5-year-old with a heart bigger than his entire body. He looked again at the dog, calculating distances and risks. The animal couldn't have been hanging there long. It was still conscious, still fighting. But it was clearly weakening by the minute. "Okay," he said finally, decision made, "but you stay right here on solid ground. Promise me, Noah." Noah nodded solemnly, wiping tears from his cheeks with the back of his hand. "I promise. Just please save him, Grandpa." Charlie took a deep breath, removing his jacket and handing it to Noah. The bridge creaked ominously as he stepped onto it, testing each board before putting his full weight down. Decades of exposure to the elements had not been kind to the structure. "Easy now," he murmured, though whether he was talking to the dog or himself, he wasn't sure. The German Shepherd began to thrash as Charlie approached, terror giving it a final burst of energy. Its movements made the railing shake, and Charlie froze, heart in his throat. "It's okay, boy," he called softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dog didn't understand, its panic increasing as Charlie inched closer. Its collar was cutting into its neck, and foam flecked its muzzle. Time was running out. "He's more scared, Grandpa," Noah called from shore. "Tell him a story, like you tell me when I'm scared of thunder." Charlie almost smiled despite the tension. Out of the mouths of babes. He began to talk in a low, soothing voice, the same tone he used when Noah had nightmares. "Hey there, good boy. You're having a rough morning, aren't you? But it's going to get better. I promise you that. I had a dog like you once, when I was just a bit older than Noah there. His name was Rex, and he could catch a frisbee from 30 yards away." He kept up the stream of gentle nonsense as he edged closer, and miraculously, the dog's thrashing lessened. Its eyes remained fixed on Charlie, but some of the wild panic had subsided. 5 more careful steps brought Charlie within reach of the animal. Now came the tricky part. The railing was most unstable here, and he would need to lean over it to reach the rope binding the dog's collar. "Noah," he called, without looking back. "Remember what I said. Stay put." "I will," came the small, terrified voice. Charlie slowly extended one arm, gripping the railing with his other hand. His fingers brushed the rope, and the dog whimpered. "Easy, boy. Easy now." The knot was tight, swollen from the moisture in the air. Charlie's fingers, stiff with age and the morning chill, struggled to find purchase. The dog's breathing was becoming more labored, its efforts to keep its footing growing weaker. A sudden crack made Charlie's blood run cold. The section of railing he was leaning on had begun to splinter. He would have only seconds before it gave way entirely. "Charlie!" Noah's terrified voice rang out, using his grandfather's name for the first time ever. In one desperate move, Charlie lunged forward, grabbing the dog's collar with one hand, while his other frantically worked at the knot. The railing groaned beneath him, dropping an inch toward the water. Come on," he muttered through gritted teeth. With a final twist, the knot came free just as the railing gave way with a sickening crack. Charlie fell backward onto the bridge planks, yanking the dog with him by its collar. They landed in a heap on the weathered wood, the railing splashing into the creek below. For a moment, Charlie just lay there, heart pounding, the dog's warm weight across his legs. Then he felt a rough tongue on his hand and opened his eyes to see the German Shepherd licking him weakly, as if in thanks. "Grandpa, you did it!" Noah was jumping up and down on the shore, tears and smiles fighting for dominance on his small face. Charlie sat up carefully, checking the dog for injuries. Its neck was raw and bleeding where the collar had cut in, and it was trembling violently. But it was alive. Somehow, against all odds, it was alive. "Let's get him to shore, buddy," Charlie called to Noah, gently coaxing the dog to stand. The German Shepherd tried to rise but collapsed immediately, its legs too weak from exhaustion and strain to support its weight. Without hesitation, Charlie gathered the large animal in his arms, grunting with the effort. The dog was heavy, but fear and adrenaline had given Charlie strength he hadn't possessed in years. Carefully, testing each step, Charlie made his way back across the creaking bridge. Noah waited at the edge, dancing from foot to foot in anticipation. "Is he gonna be okay?" Noah asked as Charlie finally stepped onto solid ground. Charlie laid the dog gently on the grass. "I don't know, little man. He's been through a lot." The German Shepherd lay panting on the ground, its eyes now half closed with exhaustion. But when Noah knelt beside it, those eyes opened fully again, watching the boy cautiously. "He's scared of me," Noah whispered, his hand hovering uncertainly above the dog's head. "He's scared of everything right now," Charlie explained, checking the animal's pulse at its neck. "Someone hurt him badly. It'll take time for him to trust again." Noah's face scrunched up in anger and confusion. Who would do something so mean? Why would anyone want to hurt a dog? Charlie had no answer that would make sense to a 5-year-old, or to himself for that matter. Some cruelties defied explanation. "I don't know, Noah. Some people have darkness in them that we can't understand." Noah was silent for a moment, contemplating this. Then, to Charlie's surprise, the boy began to sing. It was a soft, simple lullaby, one that Charlie recognized instantly. It was the song Noah's mother used to sing to him before she left, walking out of their lives when Noah was barely 3. "Hush now, don't you cry. Stars are watching from the sky. Close your eyes and go to sleep. Dreams are yours to have and keep." The simple melody floated on the morning air, impossibly gentle against the backdrop of rushing water and rustling leaves. And as Noah sang, something remarkable happened. The German Shepherd's trembling began to subside. Its breathing slowed, becoming less ragged, and its eyes, still fixed on Noah, lost some of their wild fear. When Noah reached out again, moving with exquisite slowness, the dog allowed his small hand to rest lightly on its matted fur. The contact seemed to comfort them both, and Noah continued his song, his voice growing more confident. "He likes it, Grandpa," Noah whispered between verses. "He's not so scared anymore." Charlie watched in astonishment as the powerful animal, which could easily have snapped at the boy in its traumatized state, instead leaned slightly into Noah's touch. There was something almost mystical about the connection forming between the terrorized dog and the compassionate child. "We need to get him to a vet," Charlie said, carefully checking the dog's collar. There was no tag, no identification of any kind. "He needs medicine for his neck, and food and water." Noah nodded seriously. "And a warm blanket. And maybe some ice cream. Ice cream always makes me feel better when I'm sad." Despite the gravity of the situation, Charlie couldn't help but smile. "Let's start with water and the vet. We can discuss ice cream later." He took off his flannel shirt, leaving just his undershirt, and carefully wrapped it around the dog. The animal accepted this handling with surprising docility, though it flinched when the fabric touched its wounded neck. "Can you carry my tackle box, Noah? I need both arms for our new friend here." Noah nodded eagerly, abandoning their fishing gear without a second thought. "What should we call him, Grandpa?" Charlie considered the dog as he carefully gathered it into his arms again. "Well, we found him at the bridge over Riverdale Creek. How about River?" Noah's face lit up. "River, that's perfect. Do you like that name, boy? River." The dog made no response, but it didn't pull away when Noah stroked its nose gently. The journey back to Charlie's old pickup truck was slow and careful. The dog, River, seemed to grow heavier with each step, and Charlie's arms burned with the effort. But the alternative was trying to make the traumatized animal walk, and that seemed cruel given its condition. "Will Mom let us keep him?" Noah asked as they finally reached the truck, parked in the small gravel lot at the trailhead. Charlie hesitated. His daughter-in-law, Sarah, worked 2 jobs to make ends meet after her husband, Charlie's son, died in a construction accident 2 years ago. A large dog would be one more mouth to feed, one more responsibility. But looking at Noah's hopeful face and the wounded animal in his arms, Charlie couldn't bring himself to dash those hopes. Not yet. "Let's get him healthy first," he said diplomatically. "Then we'll talk to your mom." They made a nest of old blankets in the back seat, and Charlie gently laid River down. Noah immediately climbed in beside the dog, continuing his soft singing and gentle petting. "I'll take care of you now, River," Charlie heard him whisper as he closed the door. "Nobody's going to hurt you ever again. I promise." As Charlie started the engine, he glanced in the rearview mirror. Noah had curled up beside River, his small hand resting protectively on the dog's side. The German Shepherd's eyes were closed, its breathing steadier now. For the moment, at least, it seemed to have found some peace. What Charlie didn't know, what none of them could possibly know, was that this rescue was just the beginning. The rope around River's neck had been no random act of cruelty, and the secrets locked inside the traumatized dog's mind would soon draw all of them into something far larger and more dangerous than a simple act of compassion on a spring morning. The drive to Dr. Tanya's veterinary clinic took just under 15 minutes, but it felt like hours to Charlie. Every bump in the road made him wince, imagining River's pain. Noah remained in the back seat, whispering reassurances and stroking the dog's fur with a gentleness that belied his young age. "He's sleeping, Grandpa," Noah reported as they pulled into the clinic's parking lot, "but he makes sad noises sometimes, like he's having bad dreams." Charlie nodded grimly. "I'm not surprised, buddy. He's been through a terrible ordeal." The veterinary clinic was just opening for the day when Charlie pushed through the door, the large German Shepherd cradled awkwardly in his arms. Noah trailed behind, carrying Charlie's flannel shirt that had slipped off the dog during the drive. "Oh my goodness!" The receptionist, a middle-aged woman named Betty whom Charlie knew from church, stood up in alarm. "What happened to this poor creature?" Before Charlie could answer, Dr. Tanya herself emerged from an exam room, her eyes widening at the sight. "Bring him back immediately," she ordered, professional instincts kicking in. "Betty, cancel my 8 o'clock. This is an emergency." Dr. Tanya was a brisk, efficient woman in her 40s, with streaks of premature gray in her dark hair and the no-nonsense manner of someone who'd seen it all. But even she seemed shocked, as Charlie gently laid River on the exam table and explained where they'd found him. "Deliberate cruelty," she muttered, carefully examining the raw wounds around River's neck. "This wasn't an accident or neglect. Someone wanted this dog to suffer." Noah, who had insisted on coming into the exam room, pressed against Charlie's side. "But why, Dr. Tanya? Why would anyone be so mean?" Dr. Tanya's expression softened as she looked at the boy. "I wish I had an answer for you, Noah. Some people just have darkness in them." She returned her attention to River, who had awakened and was watching her with wary eyes. "He's severely dehydrated and malnourished. These wounds around his neck will need treatment to prevent infection. And I'll want to check for internal injuries." "Will he be okay?" Noah's voice trembled slightly. Dr. Tanya's hands never stopped at their gentle, thorough examination as she answered. "He's got a fighting chance, especially thanks to you two. German Shepherds are strong dogs, and this one seems to have a powerful will to live." She looked up at Charlie. "But he'll need proper care, medication, a special diet to start. It won't be a simple recovery." Charlie nodded, already mentally calculating what this would cost and how he could help Sarah manage it. His pension wasn't much, but for Noah's sake, and now for River's, he would make it work. "We can take him to the shelter after he's stabilized," Dr. Tanya suggested, seeming to read Charlie's thoughts. "They have resources for cases like—" "No!" Noah's outburst startled all of them, including River, who flinched on the table. "No shelters! He's coming home with us! I promised him!" Charlie placed a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. "Dr. Tanya is just trying to help, buddy. A shelter might be able to give River everything he needs." "But we can give him everything he needs," Noah insisted, his blue eyes flooding with tears. "We can give him food and medicine and a warm bed. And love. That's what he needs the most. Someone to love him after what those bad people did." Dr. Tanya and Charlie exchanged a look over Noah's head. They both knew what Noah didn't. That taking in a traumatized animal, especially one as large and potentially dangerous as a German Shepherd, was no small undertaking. "Tell you what," Dr. Tanya said, filling a syringe with what Charlie assumed was a mild sedative for River. "Let me treat our patient here, run some tests, and keep him overnight for observation. That will give you time to talk with your mom, Noah, and make a proper plan." Noah looked ready to protest again, but Charlie squeezed his shoulder. "That's fair, Noah. River needs special medical care right now, and your mom deserves to be part of this decision." After a moment's hesitation, Noah nodded reluctantly. "But we'll come back tomorrow, promise?" First thing in the morning, Charlie assured him. As Dr. Tanya administered the sedative, River's eyes found Noah's, and something passed between boy and dog, a wordless communication that Charlie couldn't quite explain. The German Shepherd's tail, which had remained tucked tightly against its body since their rescue, twitched slightly, the barest hint of movement. "He knows," Noah whispered, reaching out to stroke River's head one more time before the sedative took effect. "He knows we're coming back for him." Charlie wished he shared his grandson's certainty. Sarah was a kind woman, but she was also practical to her core. Taking in a large, traumatized dog would be a hard sell, especially given their already stretched finances. As they left River in Dr. Tanya's capable hands, Charlie steeled himself for the conversation ahead. He had always taught Noah that compassion mattered above all else. Now, he would need to walk the talk, and somehow convince Sarah to do the same. The drive home was quieter than usual. Noah sat in the passenger seat, his small face set in an expression of determination that reminded Charlie painfully of his son, Noah's father, who had always worn the same look when facing a challenge. The fishing rods rattled forgotten in the truck bed. Today's catch would not be fish. "Grandpa," Noah finally broke the silence as they turned onto Maple Street. "What if Mom says no?" Charlie sighed, tapping his fingers against the steering wheel. "Then we'll figure something else out, buddy. Maybe one of my friends could take River, and you could visit." Noah shook his head firmly. "River needs us. He looked right at me, Grandpa. He picked us." Such simple certainty. Charlie wished life could always be as clear-cut as it appeared through a child's eyes. Sarah's modest two-bedroom house came into view, its faded blue paint and slightly sagging porch betraying its age. Charlie had offered many times to help fix it up, but Sarah's pride was as strong as her work ethic. She accepted help with Noah, but insisted on managing the house herself. She was hanging laundry in the side yard when they pulled up, her blonde hair tied back in a hasty ponytail, dark circles visible under her eyes even from a distance. Working the night shift at the hospital and mornings at the local diner left little time for rest. "Mom!" Noah burst from the truck before Charlie had fully stopped, racing towards Sarah with the morning's dramatic story already spilling from his lips. "We saved a dog. He was hanging from the bridge and Grandpa was so brave. And the dog's name is River and he needs us, Mom. He really needs us." Sarah's confused gaze moved from her son to Charlie, who was approaching at a more sedate pace. "What's this about a dog?" she asked, the weariness in her voice evident. Charlie explained as concisely as he could, watching Sarah's expression shift from confusion to shock to concern. "So, it's at the vet now?" she clarified when he finished. "Yes. Dr. Tanya is keeping him overnight for observation and treatment." Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose, a gesture Charlie recognized as her attempting to stave off a stress headache. "And Noah wants to bring it here. A large, traumatized German Shepherd with unknown behavior issues into our home." Put like that, even Charlie had to admit it sounded like a questionable idea. "Please, Mom," Noah tugged at Sarah's hand. "River is so sad and scared. He needs a family." "Noah, sweetie," Sarah knelt to her son's level, her voice gentle but firm. "I know your heart is in the right place, but we can barely manage as it is. Dog food, vet bills, training. These things cost money we don't have. And what about when we're both at work and school? A dog like that needs attention and care. I can help after school, and Grandpa can help too, right, Grandpa?" Noah looked to Charlie with desperate hope. Before Charlie could answer, Sarah stood up, shaking her head. "It's not just about time or money, Noah. A traumatized animal can be dangerous, especially around children. What if it turns aggressive? What if it hurts you?" "He won't," Noah insisted with that same unshakable conviction. "He's good. He's just been hurt by bad people." Sarah looked at Charlie, silently pleading for backup. But Charlie found himself unexpectedly torn. The rational part of him knew Sarah was right. Taking in River would be a financial and logistical challenge, possibly even a risk. But there had been something in that dog's eyes, something that had touched even his weathered old heart. "Maybe we could just foster him until he's recovered," Charlie suggested cautiously. "Give Dr. Tanya time to look for a suitable permanent home." Sarah's shoulders slumped slightly. "Dad, please don't encourage this unless you are prepared to take full responsibility. I'm working 16-hour days just to keep us afloat. I can't add a dog, especially a special needs one, to my plate." The disappointment on Noah's face was crushing. His lower lip trembled, but he was trying so hard to be brave, to argue his case like an adult. "He saved me too, Mom." Sarah blinked. "What do you mean, honey? I thought Grandpa saved the dog." Noah looked down at his sneakers, kicking at a tuft of grass. "Ever since Daddy went to heaven, I've been really sad inside, like there's a big empty hole. But when River looked at me and I sang to him, the hole didn't feel so big anymore." He raised his eyes to his mother's, his voice dropping to a whisper. "He's brave like Daddy was. Daddy saved that man from the falling rocks, even though it was dangerous. River never gave up, even when he was hurting real bad. I think maybe Daddy sent him to us." Sarah's face crumpled, and she pulled Noah into a tight hug, her eyes meeting Charlie's over the boy's shoulder. In that look, Charlie saw the battle between heart and head, between practicality and the pure, healing love that only comes from unexpected places. "Let me think about it," she finally said, her voice muffled against Noah's hair. "That's not a yes, young man, but it's not a no either." Noah squeezed her tightly, hope radiating from him like sunshine. "Thanks, Mom. You'll see. River is special. I just know it." As Sarah straightened up, wiping quickly at her eyes, Charlie touched her shoulder gently. "I'll help, Sarah. Whatever you decide, you know that." She nodded, managing a tired smile. "I know, Dad. Let me get cleaned up, and we'll talk more over lunch. Noah, go wash your hands. You smell like fish bait and river water." Noah dashed into the house, his spirits visibly lifted. Sarah watched him go, then turned to Charlie with a mixture of exasperation and fondness. "That boy has his father's heart, too big for his own good sometimes." Charlie nodded, feeling the familiar ache that came with any mention of his son. Mike would be proud of him today. What he did for that dog, it was something special. Sarah sighed, gathering the empty laundry basket. "We'll see what Dr. Tanya says tomorrow. If, and that's a big if, this dog isn't aggressive and doesn't need expensive specialized care, maybe we can foster it temporarily." It wasn't a commitment, but it was a start. Charlie followed Sarah into the house, thinking about second chances and the mysterious ways healing sometimes found its way into broken lives. The next morning, Charlie arrived at Sarah's house just after dawn. He'd barely slept, his mind filled with images of the German Shepherd's desperate eyes and Noah's determined face. To his surprise, Noah was already waiting on the porch steps, fully dressed despite the early hour, a small bag clutched in his hands. "What's in the bag, buddy?" Charlie asked, as Noah clambered into the truck. "Stuff for River," Noah explained, opening it to reveal a worn teddy bear, a small blanket, and what appeared to be half a peanut butter sandwich wrapped in plastic. "So, he knows he has his own things at our house." Charlie's heart squeezed painfully in his chest. He'd raised 3 children and loved them fiercely, but there was something about grandchildren that hit differently, their open hearts still untouched by the world's sharp edges. "That's mighty thoughtful of you. I'm sure he'll appreciate it." Sarah had agreed to consider fostering River temporarily, pending Dr. Tanya's assessment of the dog's health and temperament. She hadn't been able to get the morning off work, so it was just Charlie and Noah heading to the vet clinic as the sun painted the eastern sky in shades of gold and pink. The clinic was quiet when they arrived, only a single car in the parking lot, Dr. Tanya's old Subaru. The bell above the door jingled cheerfully as they entered. "Good morning, early birds," Dr. Tanya greeted them, emerging from the back room with a clipboard in hand. Her expression was professional, but Charlie caught the slight softening around her eyes when she saw Noah's eager face. "How is he?" Noah asked immediately. "Is River okay?" Dr. Tanya gestured for them to follow her into the back. "Why don't you come see for yourself?" River was in a large kennel in the recovery room, curled on a thick blanket. His neck was bandaged, an IV line running from his front leg to a nearly empty bag of fluids. But what struck Charlie most was the change in the dog's eyes. Yesterday they had been wild with fear and pain. Today, though still wary, there was a clarity to them, an awareness that hadn't been there before. The German Shepherd's tail thumped once against the blanket when he saw them, a tentative gesture that made Noah gasp with delight. "He remembers us, Grandpa! He's wagging his tail!" Dr. Tanya smiled, but her expression remained cautious. "He's definitely doing better physically. The fluids have helped with his dehydration, and I've treated the wounds on his neck and paws. He's started eating small amounts, which is encouraging." "Can I say hi to him?" Noah asked, already moving toward the kennel. "Slowly," Dr. Tanya advised. Kneel down to his level and let him come to you if he wants to. Noah followed her instructions precisely, kneeling a few feet from the kennel door and extending his hand palm up. "Hi, River. It's me, Noah. I brought you some presents for our house." For a tense moment, River just stared at the boy, his body still except for the shallow rise and fall of his breathing. Then, with visible effort, he pushed himself to his feet and moved cautiously to the front of the kennel, sniffing at Noah's fingers through the wire door. "That's it," Noah whispered encouragingly. "I'm your friend, remember? I sang you that song." As if triggered by the memory, Noah began to hum the lullaby again, soft and sweet in the quiet clinic. River's ears pricked forward, and to Charlie's amazement, the dog lowered his head to press his nose more firmly against Noah's hand. Dr. Tanya watched this interaction with professional interest. He's clearly bonded with Noah, which is remarkable given his trauma and the short time they've known each other. German Shepherds are loyal by nature, but this connection seems unusually strong. "Does that mean we can take him home?" Noah asked hopefully. Dr. Tanya's expression grew more serious. "Before I answer that, I need to show you both something I discovered during River's examination." She led them to a small office adjoining the recovery room, where X-rays were displayed on a lightbox. "These are River's neck and shoulder images. You can see the damage from the collar here." She pointed to several dark spots on the neck vertebrae. "But what's more interesting is this." She indicated a small rectangular shape embedded under the skin between River's shoulder blades. "What is that?" Charlie asked, leaning closer. "It's a microchip, but not the standard kind used for pet identification," Dr. Tanya explained. "This is more sophisticated, military or police grade, from what I can tell." Noah looked confused. "What does that mean?" Dr. Tanya switched off the lightbox. "It means River isn't just any dog. He's likely a trained service animal, possibly from a specialized unit. And whoever put him on that bridge wanted him dead for a reason." Charlie felt a chill run down his spine. What had seemed like a simple act of cruelty was suddenly taking on darker implications. "Did you scan the chip?" he asked. "Does it tell us who he belongs to?" Dr. Tanya shook her head. "My scanner can't read it. It would need specialized equipment. I've called a colleague who works with the canine police units in the city, but he can't come out until tomorrow." Noah, who had been listening intently, grabbed Charlie's hand. "We can't leave River here alone, Grandpa. What if the bad people come back for him?" It was a child's fear, but looking at the unusual chip on the X-ray, Charlie couldn't dismiss it entirely. Someone had gone to considerable trouble to dispose of this animal in a particularly cruel way. "What do you think, Doc?" he asked. "Medically speaking, is he fit to be released?" Dr. Tanya considered this. His physical condition is stable enough for home care, provided his medication schedule is followed strictly. But I'm more concerned about his psychological state. Traumatized animals can be unpredictable, sometimes aggressive. "He's not aggressive," Noah insisted. "He's just scared and sad." Dr. Tanya smiled gently at the boy. "Sometimes, Noah, the people who are best at judging animal temperament are the ones who see with their hearts instead of just their eyes. And I have to admit, River seems remarkably calm around you." She looked at Charlie, her expression turning professional again. "If, and only if, your daughter-in-law agrees, I would consider releasing him to your care with strict protocols in place. No sudden movements, no loud noises, and Noah is never to be alone with River, at least for the first week. I'll provide detailed instructions for his medication and care." Noah was practically vibrating with excitement. "Mom said maybe. She said if he's not aggressive and doesn't need special stuff, we might be able to foster him." Charlie put a steadying hand on Noah's shoulder. "Let's call your mom and see what she says, given what we know now." The call to Sarah was brief, Charlie explaining the situation as clearly as possible, while Noah hovered anxiously nearby. Sarah asked to speak directly with Dr. Tanya, who provided her professional assessment of River's condition and temperament. Finally, after what seemed like hours to Noah but was only a few minutes, Dr. Tanya handed the phone back to Charlie. "She says yes," Charlie told Noah, unable to keep the smile from his face as the boy erupted in cheers. "But," he added quickly, "there are conditions. Dr. Tanya's rules must be followed exactly, and it's just for 1 week, until we figure out who River really belongs to." Noah's celebration didn't diminish in the slightest. 1 week is plenty. Once Mom meets River, she'll love him too. I just know it." The process of discharging River took nearly an hour. Dr. Tanya removed his IV, checked his bandages one last time, and went over the detailed care instructions with Charlie. There were antibiotics for his wounds, a special diet to help him regain weight safely, and guidelines for gradually increasing his activity as he recovered. Throughout all of this, River remained remarkably docile, his eyes tracking Noah's movements around the room. When it was finally time to leave, Dr. Tanya fitted River with a padded harness that wouldn't irritate his neck wounds. The leash attaches here, she demonstrated for Charlie. And remember, if he shows any signs of aggression or extreme fear, growling, raised hackles, excessive barking, call me immediately. Noah, who had been patiently waiting by the door with his bag of gifts, approached River slowly with the teddy bear. "This is for you," he said, holding it out. "His name is Sergeant. He'll keep you company when you're scared." Charlie held his breath, watching carefully as River sniffed the offered toy. After a moment's consideration, the German Shepherd gently took the bear in his mouth, his tail giving a single tentative wag. "He likes it," Noah beamed. Dr. Tanya checked her watch. "My colleague should be here tomorrow around noon to look at that chip. I'll call you as soon as we know anything." Charlie nodded, taking River's leash from her. "Thank you for everything, Doc. We'll be careful." The drive home was a delicate operation. River was still weak, and loading him into the truck took both Charlie and one of the vet techs. Once settled in the back seat, however, the dog seemed content to rest his head on Noah's lap, the teddy bear still clutched gently in his mouth. "See, Grandpa?" Noah whispered, his small hand resting on River's head. "I told you he was good." Charlie couldn't argue with the evidence before his eyes. Despite everything River had endured, the dog showed no signs of aggression, just a deep, understandable wariness and an inexplicable attachment to Noah. Sarah was waiting on the porch when they pulled up, her arms crossed, and her expression apprehensive. Her morning shift at the diner had ended early, allowing her to prepare the house for their new temporary resident. "Remember what we agreed?" she called as Noah carefully helped River out of the truck. "1 week. And he stays in the fenced backyard or the mudroom, not in the main house." Noah nodded solemnly, though Charlie suspected the boy was already planning how to change her mind about those restrictions. River paused at the bottom of the porch steps, his body tensing as he regarded Sarah. The teddy bear had been reluctantly abandoned in the truck, but the dog's posture remained alert, assessing. "It's okay," Noah reassured him. "That's my mom. She's nice, I promise." Sarah, to her credit, followed Dr. Tanya's instructions perfectly. She knelt slowly on the top step, avoiding direct eye contact with River, and held out her hand palm up. "Hello there," she said softly. "Welcome to our home, River." For a long moment, the German Shepherd remained frozen, his eyes darting between Sarah and Noah as if seeking confirmation. Then, with deliberate slowness, he climbed the steps and sniffed Sarah's outstretched hand. "Good boy," she murmured, allowing him to approach at his own pace. River completed his inspection of Sarah and then, to everyone's surprise, sat down beside her, his shoulder just touching her knee. It was a small gesture, but in the language of traumatized animals, it spoke volumes. Sarah's eyes met Charlie's over River's head, a mixture of surprise and something softer in her gaze. "Well," she said quietly, "I guess that settles where he's sleeping tonight." Noah's face lit up like a Christmas tree. "You mean the mudroom," Sarah clarified quickly, "but maybe we can leave the door to the kitchen open, just so he doesn't feel alone." It was a small concession, but Noah treated it like the greatest victory. "Thank you, Mom. River, you're gonna love it here. We have a big yard, and I can show you all my favorite spots, and—" "Slow down, buddy," Charlie cautioned. "River needs rest first. Remember what Dr. Tanya said about taking things gradually." Noah nodded, immediately switching to his serious caretaker mode. "Right. First we make his bed in the mudroom, then medicine, then maybe a little water and food." Sarah rose to her feet, brushing off her jeans. "I picked up the supplies from Dr. Tanya's list on my way home. They're in the mudroom already." She hesitated, then added softly, "I also got him a proper dog bed. The floor seemed too hard for someone who's been through so much." Charlie caught the slight tremor in her voice and recognized it for what it was, the first crack in the wall of practicality she'd built around her heart. River had somehow sensed Sarah's inherent kindness beneath her cautious exterior. And like Noah, the dog seemed to have an uncanny ability to find the soft spots in human defenses. Together they settled River in the mudroom, arranging his bed in the corner with a view of the kitchen. Noah carefully placed the teddy bear, retrieved from the truck, and his small blanket on the dog bed, creating a nest that looked surprisingly welcoming. "There," he said with satisfaction. "Now you have a real home, River." Charlie noticed that River's eyes remained fixed on Noah, tracking his every movement. There was something almost protective in that gaze, as though the dog had appointed himself the boy's guardian rather than the other way around. Sarah administered River's medication with a professional efficiency that reminded Charlie of her nursing training. "Mom skills transfer pretty well to dog care," she commented, gently checking River's bandages, "though I still can't believe we're doing this." "Thank you," Noah said, wrapping his arms around Sarah's waist. "River thanks you too, don't you, boy?" River's tail thumped once against the dog bed in what could have been agreement. As they left the mudroom to give River space to rest, Charlie noticed something that sent a slight chill down his spine. The German Shepherd's posture had changed, becoming more alert. His ears swiveled toward the front of the house, and a low, almost inaudible rumble emanated from his chest. Charlie paused, watching River carefully. The dog's attention was fixed on the front door, his muscles tensed beneath his fur. "What is it, boy?" Charlie murmured. "What do you hear?" River's only response was to rise shakily to his feet, his stance protective despite his weakness. "Dad?" Sarah had noticed Charlie's concern. "Is something wrong?" Charlie shook his head slowly, unsure himself. Probably nothing, just the wind or a delivery truck passing by. But as they moved into the kitchen to prepare lunch, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that River had sensed something beyond their human perception, something that had triggered his training, whatever that might have been. What they didn't know then was that the mystery of River's past was about to catch up with them, bringing dangers none of them could have imagined. The simple act of mercy at the bridge had set in motion a chain of events that would test them all in ways they couldn't possibly anticipate. And it would begin with the unexpected discovery Noah would make the very next morning, a discovery hidden beneath the soil of Sarah's modest backyard, where River would lead them with uncanny purpose in the first light of dawn. Morning came with a gentle rain that pattered against the windows, washing the world in soft gray light. Sarah moved quietly through the kitchen, preparing for her early shift at the diner. She paused at the mudroom door, peering in to check on their temporary guest. The dog bed was empty. "River?" she called softly, a flutter of alarm rising in her chest. The mudroom door to the backyard was firmly closed, so he couldn't have gotten outside, which meant a soft thump from Noah's room answered her unspoken question. Sarah hurried down the short hallway and gently pushed open her son's door. There, curled protectively at the foot of Noah's small bed, was River. The boy lay sprawled in the carefree sleep of childhood, one hand resting on the German Shepherd's back. River's eyes were open, watching Sarah with alert intelligence. He made no move to leave his post, but his tail thumped once against the bedspread in acknowledgement of her presence. Sarah's first instinct was irritation. They had agreed River would stay in the mudroom, but something about the tableau before her melted that irritation away. The dog looked like a guardian from an ancient story, keeping watch over his young charge through the vulnerable hours of the night. "You're supposed to be resting," she whispered to River, careful not to wake Noah. River's ears twitched, but he remained where he was, his message clear. His place was here. Sarah sighed, unable to find it in her heart to scold the dog. "Fine, but don't tell Noah I let you stay. I'll never hear the end of it." She could have sworn River's mouth curled in the faintest approximation of a smile. Closing the door quietly, Sarah finished getting ready for work. Charlie would be over soon to watch Noah, and she'd left a note about River's medication schedule on the refrigerator. The forecast called for rain all day. A good thing, perhaps, as it would force Noah to keep River's activities limited to quiet indoor rest, just as Dr. Tanya had recommended. What Sarah couldn't have known as she drove to work that rainy morning was that the weather would clear just long enough for a discovery that would change everything. Noah woke to the gentle pressure of River's muzzle nudging his hand. The rain had stopped, and watery sunlight streamed through the bedroom window, creating patches of gold on the faded carpet. "River!" Noah sat up, rubbing his eyes in surprise. "How did you get in here?" River stood beside the bed, his posture alert despite the bandages still wrapped around his neck. The teddy bear Noah had given him was clutched gently in his mouth. "You brought Sergeant for me?" Noah giggled, taking the stuffed toy. "Thanks, boy." But River didn't settle or relax as Noah expected. Instead, the German Shepherd moved to the bedroom door, looking back expectantly at the boy. Noah slid out of bed, still in his pajamas. "What is it? Do you need to go outside?" That seemed to be the right guess. River's tail wagged, and he paced impatiently as Noah opened the bedroom door. In the kitchen, Charlie was seated at the table with a cup of coffee and the morning newspaper. He looked up in surprise as Noah and River appeared. "Well, good morning to you both. I see someone made a jailbreak from the mudroom." "River brought me Sergeant," Noah explained, holding up the teddy bear, "and now he needs to go outside." Charlie checked his watch. "Your mom will have my hide if I let you out in your pajamas without breakfast first. How about you eat something, get dressed, and then we can take River for a very short walk in the backyard. Remember, Dr. Tanya said he needs to rest." But River seemed to have other ideas. The dog paced anxiously between Noah and the back door, his behavior becoming increasingly insistent. "I think he really needs to go, Grandpa," Noah said with concern. "Like, really bad." Charlie sighed, recognizing the urgency in the dog's demeanor. "All right, just a quick bathroom break. But stay on the porch while I hold his leash, okay? The grass is still wet from the rain." Noah nodded eagerly, following as Charlie led River to the back door. The moment Charlie opened it, River strained forward with surprising strength for an animal still recovering from trauma. "Whoa, easy there," Charlie murmured, keeping a firm grip on the leash. "What's got you so worked up this morning?" River pulled determinedly toward a specific corner of the modest backyard, an area beneath an old oak tree where Sarah had once attempted to start a vegetable garden. The patch had been abandoned years ago, reclaimed by grass and weeds, but something about it had captured River's complete attention. "Grandpa, I think he wants to show us something," Noah said, his voice dropping to an excited whisper as he stepped off the porch, despite Charlie's instructions. "Noah, stay back," Charlie cautioned, but his own curiosity was piqued by River's strange behavior. When they reached the old garden patch, River began to dig frantically, his front paws sending dirt flying despite his still healing wounds. Hey, take it easy," Charlie tried to pull him back. "You'll tear your stitches." But River was not to be deterred. With single-minded focus, he continued to dig until his paws struck something solid, something that made a hollow, metallic sound when his claws scraped against it. "There's something buried there," Noah exclaimed, dropping to his knees beside River, his pajamas instantly soaked from the damp earth. Charlie's protest died on his lips as Noah joined in the digging, small hands working alongside River's paws. Within minutes, they had uncovered the corner of what appeared to be a metal box. "Grandpa, help us!" Noah pleaded, his eyes wide with excitement. Against his better judgment, Charlie knelt and helped clear away the remaining soil. What emerged was a military-style ammunition box, roughly the size of a shoebox, caked with dirt but surprisingly intact. "How did this get here?" Charlie wondered aloud. Sarah had bought this house only after her husband's death, and as far as Charlie knew, no one with military connections had lived here previously. River sat back on his haunches, watching intently as Charlie lifted the box from its earthy grave. It was heavier than it looked, and something inside shifted when he moved it. "Can we open it, Grandpa, please?" Noah was practically vibrating with curiosity. Charlie hesitated, eyeing River. The dog's entire demeanor had changed. The frantic urgency was gone, replaced by a focused stillness that seemed almost professional, as if he had completed an assigned task. "Let's take it to the porch," Charlie decided, "and clean it up a bit first." Using the garden hose, they rinsed the worst of the mud from the box. The green paint was faded and chipped, but Charlie could make out stenciled lettering on the side. "Property of U.S. Military K9 Unit." "K9?" Noah sounded out the letters. "That means dog, right? Like canine?" "That's right," Charlie confirmed, a strange feeling settling in his stomach. "It's for military working dogs." River watched them intently, his eyes never leaving the box. When Charlie finally tried the latch, he found it unlocked. With a deep breath, he opened the lid. Inside, nestled in a waterproof bag, they found several items: a thick leather collar with military tags attached, a small stack of photographs, and a sealed envelope. "That looks like River's collar," Noah said, pointing to the leather band. Charlie carefully removed it from the bag. The collar was high-quality leather, obviously designed for a working dog, not a pet. The tags jingled as he turned it over, examining the engraving. Echo, Canine Special Operations, Handler, CPT, James Reynolds. Echo? Noah looked at River, whose ears had pricked forward at the sound of the name. "Is that your real name, boy? Echo?" The German Shepherd's tail gave a single, deliberate wag. "Look at these, Grandpa." Noah had pulled out the photographs, his small fingers careful with the dog-eared edges. The images showed a slightly younger, healthier version of River, or Echo, alongside a tall, broad-shouldered man in military fatigues. In one photo, they were posed formally in front of an American flag. In another, they appeared to be training, Echo sailing over an obstacle course hurdle. But it was the third photo that made Charlie's breath catch. It showed Echo's handler, Captain Reynolds presumably, kneeling beside the German Shepherd, both of them dusty and tired-looking, somewhere desert-like, perhaps Afghanistan or Iraq. The man's arm was draped around the dog's shoulders, and they were looking at each other with an unmistakable bond of trust and affection. They were best friends, Noah whispered, understanding instinctively what he was seeing. Charlie nodded, his throat tight. He'd seen that look before, in the eyes of men who'd gone through hell together and come out the other side. Whatever this Captain Reynolds and Echo had experienced, it had forged a bond as strong as any human friendship. With slightly unsteady hands, Charlie opened the sealed envelope. Inside was a single sheet of military letterhead paper, dated 6 months earlier. "To whom it may concern," Charlie read aloud, "if you are reading this, something has happened to me, and Echo is in your care." Noah pressed against Charlie's side, his eyes wide. Echo, it was getting easier to think of River by his real name now, moved closer too, his ears alert as if he recognized the words. "Echo is more than a military working dog," Charlie continued reading. "He has saved my life multiple times during our deployments and is the finest canine partner any handler could ask for. He is trained in explosives detection, tracking, and protective duties, but he is also my best friend." Charlie had to pause, clearing his throat before he could continue. "If I am reported as killed in action, do not believe it without seeing my body. Echo and I uncovered something during our last deployment that made us targets. There are people who want us silenced. Echo has been implanted with a specialized chip containing encrypted data. This data is evidence of what we discovered. Keep him safe until you can contact Major Sandra Wilson at the number below. She'll know what to do." The letter was signed, Captain James Reynolds, Special Forces K-9 Unit, with a phone number and what appeared to be a military email address at the bottom. Charlie and Noah sat in stunned silence, the implications of what they'd just read slowly sinking in. Echo, no longer just an abused dog they'd rescued, but a highly trained military asset carrying classified information, watched them with knowing eyes. "Captain Reynolds was reported deceased 6 months ago," Charlie murmured, remembering Dr. Tanya's words about the specialized chip. "But according to this letter, he might still be alive," Noah finished, his face lighting up. "Echo was trying to find him when the bad guys caught him and put him on the bridge. We have to help them, Grandpa. We have to find Captain Reynolds." Charlie ran a hand through his thinning hair, feeling the weight of this unexpected responsibility. "Noah, this is serious stuff. If what this letter says is true, Echo isn't just any dog, and whoever tried to kill him might—" He stopped himself, suddenly aware of Noah's wide, innocent eyes fixed on him. The boy didn't need to hear about the potential dangers now surrounding them. "Might what, Grandpa?" Noah pressed. "Might still be looking for him," Charlie finished, deciding honesty was best, just not the full, frightening truth. "We need to call Dr. Tanya right away and tell her what we found. Her colleague who's coming to check Echo's chip needs to see this too." Noah nodded solemnly, but then his expression brightened. "I knew Echo was special. He's a hero dog, Grandpa, a real hero dog." Echo's tail thumped against the porch boards, at the word hero, almost as if he understood. Charlie carefully replaced the items in the waterproof bag, his mind racing. They were just ordinary people, a retired construction worker, a struggling single mother, and a 5-year-old boy. They weren't equipped to handle military secrets or protect a valuable asset from whoever had tried to kill Echo. And yet, here they were, drawn into something larger than themselves by a simple act of compassion at a bridge. "Can we call Mom and tell her?" Noah asked, petting Echo's head gently. "She won't believe it." "Let's wait until she gets home," Charlie decided. "She's working, and this isn't the kind of news you deliver over the phone." Plus, he needed time to think, to figure out how to protect his family from whatever they'd stumbled into. Noah seemed satisfied with this answer and turned his attention back to Echo. "You're even more amazing than I thought," he told the dog earnestly. "No wonder you're so brave." Echo responded by gently taking the hem of Noah's pajama top in his mouth and tugging him toward the back door, as if suggesting they should go inside. "I think our hero dog wants his breakfast," Charlie said, grateful for the momentary return to normalcy. As they headed back into the house, Charlie couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. He scanned the quiet neighborhood, the row of modest houses, the empty streets still slick with rain. Nothing seemed out of place, and yet, Echo paused at the door, looking back over his shoulder with a low, almost inaudible growl. "What is it, boy?" Charlie asked, following the dog's gaze. Echo stared intently at a dark sedan parked 2 houses down. It was too far away for Charlie to see if anyone was inside, but the dog's reaction was enough to send a chill down his spine. "Come on," he said quietly, ushering Noah and Echo inside and locking the door behind them. "Let's get you both fed and then make that call to Dr. Tanya." What Charlie didn't tell Noah was that he would also be making another call to his old friend Frank, who had retired from the county sheriff's department 3 years ago. Because military secrets or not, someone had tried to kill Echo, and Charlie wasn't about to let them get a second chance. Dr. Tanya arrived at Sarah's house just after 10, accompanied by a tall, stern-looking man in a police uniform who introduced himself as Officer Martinez, K-9 Unit Liaison. "I came as soon as I got your call," Dr. Tanya said, her eyes widening at the sight of the military box and its contents spread out on Sarah's kitchen table. "You say River, I mean Echo, led you right to this?" Charlie nodded, keeping his voice low, so Noah, who was in the living room, showing Echo his toy cars, couldn't overhear. Dug it up himself, like he knew exactly where it was, and look at this letter. Officer Martinez read Captain Reynolds' letter carefully, his expression giving nothing away. When he finished, he folded it precisely and returned it to the envelope. "This is unexpected," he said finally. "Captain Reynolds was indeed reported KIA 6 months ago during an operation overseas. His body was never recovered, which isn't unusual in certain combat situations. But this," he tapped the letter, "suggests something else entirely." "Can you check if this Major Wilson is real?" Charlie asked. "The one mentioned in the letter?" Officer Martinez nodded. "I'll make some calls, but first, I'd like to examine the dog's chip. My scanner is more sophisticated than what veterinary clinics typically use." They called Noah and Echo into the kitchen. Echo entered cautiously, his posture alert as he assessed Officer Martinez. "It's okay, Echo," Noah reassured him, one small hand resting on the dog's shoulder. "They're here to help us find Captain Reynolds." At the sound of his handler's name, Echo's ears pricked forward. "He knows that name," Officer Martinez observed, kneeling slowly to Echo's level. "Echo, come." The command, delivered in a firm, authoritative tone, triggered an immediate response. Echo moved forward and sat directly in front of Martinez, his posture shifting to perfect military attention despite his injuries. "Good boy," Martinez said, his voice softening slightly. He reached into his pocket and removed a handheld scanner, similar to the ones used in veterinary clinics, but clearly more advanced. "This won't hurt, but I need you to hold very still." Echo remained motionless as Martinez ran the scanner over the area between his shoulder blades. After a moment, the device emitted a series of beeps. "Got it," Martinez murmured, studying the small screen. "It's encrypted, as Captain Reynolds said. Military-grade security. I can't access the data without proper authorization." "But you can confirm it's a military chip?" Dr. Tanya asked. Martinez nodded. "Absolutely. This is genuine Special Operations K-9 technology, not something you'd find on a regular service dog." "So, what happens now?" Charlie asked. "Do we just hand Echo over to the military? There are people after him, according to that letter. Dangerous people." Martinez's expression darkened. "Normally, I'd say yes. He should be transferred to a secure military facility immediately. But if what Captain Reynolds wrote is true, and there are corrupt elements involved, we need to be careful about who we contact." "What about Major Wilson?" Dr. Tanya suggested. "The letter specifically names her as someone to trust." "I'll need to verify her position and current status first," Martinez said. "In the meantime," a sharp bark from Echo interrupted him. The German Shepherd was facing the living room window, his body rigid, hackles raised. Charlie moved quickly to the window, carefully peering through a gap in the curtains. The dark sedan he'd noticed earlier was now parked directly across the street, and this time, he could clearly see someone sitting in the driver's seat, watching the house. "We have company," he said quietly, turning back to the room. "Someone's been watching the house since this morning." Martinez's hand moved instinctively to his service weapon. "Describe the vehicle." As Charlie gave the details, Echo moved to Noah's side, positioning himself between the boy and the window. The dog's protective instinct was unmistakable. "I need to report this," Martinez said, pulling out his radio, "and request backup." "Wait," Charlie stopped him. "If there are corrupt officials involved, how do we know who to trust? Your radio call could alert the wrong people." Martinez hesitated, clearly torn between protocol and the unusual circumstances. "You have a point," he conceded finally. "Let me make a direct call to my captain. I've known him for 15 years. He's solid." While Martinez stepped into the kitchen to make his call, Charlie knelt beside Noah and Echo. "Are the bad people here, Grandpa?" Noah asked, his voice small but remarkably steady. Charlie considered lying to protect the boy from fear, but Noah's clear eyes demanded honesty. "I don't know for sure, buddy, but Officer Martinez is going to make sure we're all safe." "Echo will protect us," Noah said with absolute confidence, his arm draped over the German Shepherd's back. "That's his job, right? That's what Captain Reynolds trained him to do." "That's right," Charlie agreed, amazed once again by his grandson's intuitive understanding of the situation. "And Grandpa will protect you too." Martinez returned, his expression grim. "My captain is sending unmarked cars as backup. They'll be here in 15 minutes. But we may not have that long. The vehicle you described matches one reported stolen this morning. Whoever's watching us doesn't want to be identified." As if confirming his words, the sound of a car door closing came from outside. Echo's growl deepened, his body tensing further. "They're approaching the house," Martinez said, drawing his weapon. "Dr. Tanya, take Noah and Echo to the back bedroom. Charlie, is there a weapon in the house?" Charlie nodded. "Sarah keeps a shotgun in the hall closet, her late husband's." "Get it," Martinez ordered, "and call your daughter-in-law. Tell her not to come home until we give the all clear." Dr. Tanya gathered Noah quickly. "Come on, sweetheart. We're going to play a quiet game in your mom's room, okay?" "I'm not leaving Echo," Noah insisted, his fingers tightening in the dog's fur. "Echo is coming too," Dr. Tanya assured him. "He's going to help protect us." Noah looked to his grandfather for confirmation. Charlie nodded encouragingly, though his heart was hammering in his chest. "Go with Dr. Tanya, Noah. I'll be right behind you." As they disappeared down the hallway, Charlie retrieved the shotgun from the closet, checking that it was loaded. It had been years since he'd fired a weapon, but some skills never disappeared entirely. Martinez positioned himself by the front door, peering cautiously through the peephole. Male subject approaching the porch, Caucasian, mid-30s, wearing a dark jacket. He's alone, but there could be others in the vehicle. Charlie took up position in the hallway, where he had a clear view of the front door, but was partially concealed by the wall. His hands were steady on the shotgun, decades of construction work having strengthened his grip despite his age. The doorbell rang, its cheerful chime incongruous with the tension filling the house. "Police," Martinez called through the door. "State your business." A moment of silence, then a voice, smooth, almost friendly, responded. "Sorry to bother you. I'm looking for my dog. Someone reported seeing him in this area. German Shepherd. Answers to Max." Echo, from the back bedroom, let out a low, rumbling growl that carried through the house. Martinez glanced at Charlie, his expression saying what words didn't need to. The man was lying. "No dogs here, sir," Martinez replied, "but I'd be happy to take your information in case we spot him." "Actually, I'd rather come in and see for myself," the voice had hardened, losing its friendly facade. "I know he's in there. The dog belongs to me, and I want him back. Now." "Sir, I'm a police officer, and I'm asking you to step away from the door." A chilling laugh was the only response. Then, without warning, the front window exploded inward, glass shattering across the living room floor as a small object thudded onto the carpet. "Smoke grenade!" Martinez shouted, lunging toward it. But before he could reach it, the device began spewing dense, choking smoke. Within seconds, the front of the house was filled with a thick gray cloud. Charlie heard Martinez coughing, trying to make his way back toward the hallway. "Get to Noah," the officer managed between gasps. Charlie didn't hesitate. He turned and ran toward the back bedroom, the shotgun clutched in his hands. Behind him, he heard the front door crash open, followed by heavy footsteps entering the house. "Find the dog," a voice ordered through the smoke, "and eliminate anyone who gets in the way." Charlie's blood ran cold. These weren't just criminals. They were professional, organized, and clearly prepared to kill. He reached the bedroom door just as Dr. Tanya was barricading it with a dresser. Noah sat on the bed, his eyes wide with fear but remarkably tearless. Echo stood at attention beside him, every muscle tensed for action. "They're inside," Charlie said in a harsh whisper. "We need to get out. Now." Dr. Tanya nodded, already moving toward the window. "It opens onto the backyard. If we can make it to my car—" A burst of gunfire from the front of the house cut her off. They heard a grunt of pain, followed by Martinez's voice shouting something unintelligible. "Officer Martinez is hit," Charlie realized with horror. "They're shooting." Noah made a small sound of distress, and Echo immediately pressed against him, offering silent comfort. "The window," Dr. Tanya insisted, already working the latch. "It's our only chance." Charlie moved to help her, but before they could open it, a new sound froze them in place. Footsteps in the hallway, approaching the bedroom door. "Check every room," a voice commanded from just outside. "The chip is in the dog. Once we have it, burn the place down. No witnesses." Noah looked at his grandfather, fear finally breaking through his brave facade. "Grandpa," he whispered, tears welling in his eyes. Something inside Charlie hardened to steel. Not his grandson, not today, not ever. He raised the shotgun just as the bedroom door handle began to turn. But before Charlie could fire, Echo moved with explosive speed. In a blur of focused aggression, completely unlike his previous gentle demeanor, the German Shepherd launched himself at the partially barricaded door, his powerful body slamming against it with such force that the dresser skidded backward. The door burst open, revealing a startled man in tactical gear, a pistol raised. Before he could fire, Echo was on him, jaws clamping around the gunman's arm with military-trained precision. The man screamed, his weapon clattering to the floor as Echo drove him backward into the hall. "Go!" Charlie shouted to Dr. Tanya and Noah. "Out the window, now!" Dr. Tanya didn't hesitate. She threw the window open and lifted Noah, practically tossing him into the yard before following herself. Charlie backed toward the window, keeping the shotgun trained on the doorway, where sounds of struggle echoed from the hallway. "Echo!" Noah called frantically from outside. "Echo, come!" But the German Shepherd was engaged in the task he had been trained for, protecting his people at all costs. Charlie could hear more shouts, the sounds of additional intruders approaching, and Echo's continuous growling as he fought with desperate courage. Charlie was halfway through the window when he heard the distinct sound of a gunshot, followed by a sharp yelp of pain. His heart lurched. "Echo!" For an agonizing moment, there was silence. Then, amazingly, Echo appeared in the bedroom doorway, limping badly, blood darkening the fur on his rear leg. Despite his injury, the dog's eyes were clear and determined. He'd bought them precious seconds, and now he was coming to join their escape. "Come on, boy," Charlie urged, reaching back through the window. "You can make it." With a tremendous effort, Echo crossed the room and leapt through the window, landing awkwardly in the yard beside Noah. The boy immediately wrapped his arms around the dog's neck, tears streaming down his face. "You're hurt," Noah sobbed. "The bad men shot you." "We need to move," Dr. Tanya said urgently, already pulling Noah toward the back fence. "Those men will be right behind us." Charlie climbed fully through the window, landing with less grace than Echo had. As they hurried toward Dr. Tanya's car, parked in the alley behind the house, he glanced back to see smoke now pouring from the front windows. The intruders were making good on their threat to burn the evidence of their attack. "What about Officer Martinez?" Dr. Tanya asked as they reached her car. Charlie's expression was grim. "We need to get Noah and Echo to safety first. Then we'll call for help." As they piled into the vehicle, Echo collapsed in the back seat beside Noah. His breathing labored, blood soaking into the upholstery. "He needs a vet right now," Dr. Tanya said, starting the engine. "That bullet wound could be fatal if we don't treat it soon." Noah's face crumpled. "No, Echo can't die. He saved us." Charlie reached back to squeeze Noah's shoulder. "He's not going to die, buddy. Dr. Tanya is going to take care of him. Right, Doc?" Dr. Tanya nodded, her eyes meeting Charlie's in the rearview mirror. "Right, but we need a safe place to do it. We can't go back to my clinic. That's the first place they'll look." As they pulled away from the burning house, sirens wailing in the distance, Charlie made a quick decision. "I know somewhere, an old hunting cabin that belonged to my father. It's about an hour from here, deep in the woods. Nobody knows about it except family." "What about Mom?" Noah asked, his voice trembling as he gently stroked Echo's head. "The bad men might try to hurt her too." Charlie was already dialing Sarah's number. "I'm calling her now, Noah. We'll warn her. She'll be okay." But as the phone rang without answer, Charlie felt a cold knot of dread forming in his stomach. Sarah always answered her phone, especially when Charlie called during her work hours, knowing he would only interrupt if it was important. "No answer," he said quietly to Dr. Tanya. The veterinarian's knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. "Try the diner directly." Charlie dialed the number, which he knew by heart from years of meeting Sarah for lunch. This time, someone answered, Betty, the diner's longtime manager. "Riverdale Diner, how can I help you?" "Betty, it's Charlie, Sarah's father-in-law. I need to speak with her urgently." There was a pause. Then Betty's voice returned, hushed with concern. "Charlie, Sarah left almost an hour ago. 2 men came in, said there was an emergency at home. They had badges, said they were police." The bottom dropped out of Charlie's world. "What kind of badges, Betty? Did you see what agency?" I didn't look that closely. They seemed official. Sarah was worried. She left right away with them. Is everything okay?" Charlie struggled to keep his voice steady. "Everything's fine, Betty. Just a misunderstanding. Thanks." He hung up, his hand shaking slightly as he lowered the phone. "What is it?" Dr. Tanya asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Charlie turned in his seat, making sure Noah was focused on Echo and not listening too closely. "They have Sarah," he said in a low voice. "They took her from the diner, using fake police credentials." Dr. Tanya's face paled. "Oh my God, what do they want with her?" "Leverage," Charlie replied grimly. "They know we have Echo. Now they have something we want too." In the back seat, Noah was whispering to Echo, whose breathing had become more labored. The dog's eyes were half closed with pain, but he managed to lick Noah's hand weakly, as if still trying to comfort the boy despite his own suffering. "We're going to help you, Echo," Noah promised, his voice breaking. "And then we're going to find Captain Reynolds and my mom. The bad guys won't win. Heroes always win in the end." Charlie exchanged a look with Dr. Tanya in the rearview mirror. Neither of them had the heart to tell Noah that real life rarely worked out as neatly as storybooks. The truth was, they were now fugitives, hunted by unknown enemies with seemingly unlimited resources and no moral boundaries. Their only allies were a wounded dog and a police officer who might already be dead. And somewhere out there was Sarah, a pawn in a deadly game she knew nothing about, with only her father-in-law and 5-year-old son standing between her and whatever fate awaited her at the hands of men willing to burn down a house with people inside it. "The cabin," Charlie said firmly. "We patch up Echo, regroup, and then figure out our next move. These people, whoever they are, they've made a serious mistake." "What's that?" Dr. Tanya asked. Charlie's weathered face hardened with determination. "They've threatened my family, and there's nothing in this world more dangerous than a grandparent protecting their grandchild." As Dr. Tanya navigated the back roads leading out of town, Charlie stared out the window at the passing landscape, his mind racing. The military ammunition box and its contents, proof of Captain Reynolds' suspicions, had been left behind in the burning house. Echo was wounded, possibly critically. Sarah was in the hands of killers. And yet, there was one slim hope they clung to, the mysterious chip implanted in Echo's shoulder. Whatever information it contained had made powerful people desperate enough to commit murder, which meant it was valuable enough to potentially use as leverage to save Sarah. Now they just had to figure out how to access it. The hunting cabin was exactly as Charlie remembered, small, rustic, and perfectly isolated. Nestled in a dense grove of pines, it was barely visible from the narrow dirt road that served as its only access point. Charlie's father had built it decades ago, and after his death, Charlie had maintained it minimally, using it only for occasional fishing trips. Now, its isolation made it the perfect sanctuary. "It's not much," Charlie apologized as he unlocked the weathered door. "No electricity, just a generator out back. But there's clean water from the well, and nobody will find us here." Dr. Tanya surveyed the single-room cabin with professional efficiency. "It'll do. Help me get Echo inside. Noah, can you find some clean towels or blankets?" Noah, who had been silent for most of the drive, his face streaked with dried tears, nodded solemnly. Despite his fear and worry, the boy was showing remarkable resilience. Together, Charlie and Dr. Tanya lifted Echo's limp form from the car. The German Shepherd was barely conscious, his breathing shallow, the back seat stained dark with his blood. They carried him into the cabin, laying him gently on the small kitchen table that Charlie hastily cleared of dust and debris. "I need better light," Dr. Tanya said, already opening her medical bag. She had stopped briefly at a gas station to collect her emergency supplies from the trunk of her car, anticipating Echo's need for immediate treatment. Charlie found an old oil lamp and lit it, positioning it near the table. The warm glow illuminated Echo's wounded body, revealing the full extent of his injury. The bullet had entered his rear left thigh, and while there was no exit wound, the bleeding had slowed to a steady trickle. "Is he going to be okay?" Noah asked in a small voice, returning with a stack of musty but clean towels from the cabin's small linen closet. Dr. Tanya gave the boy a reassuring smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "He's a very strong dog, Noah, and I'm going to do everything I can to help him." "He saved us," Noah said, his lower lip trembling. "He fought the bad men so we could escape." "That's what he was trained to do," Charlie put a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. "Now we have to be brave so Dr. Tanya can help him. Can you be my special assistant? I need someone to hold the lamp steady." Noah nodded eagerly, grateful for a task that made him feel useful. While he held the lamp, Charlie helped Dr. Tanya prepare her makeshift operating area, boiling water on the old propane stove and arranging her instruments on a clean towel. "I need to extract the bullet," she explained quietly to Charlie. "It's risky without proper equipment, but leaving it in is riskier. The good news is that it doesn't appear to have hit any major arteries, or he would have bled out already." "What do you need me to do?" Charlie asked. "Hold him still. Even sedated, he might react to the pain." After administering a sedative to Echo, Dr. Tanya worked with careful precision, her capable hands steady despite the less-than-ideal conditions. Noah watched wide-eyed as she extracted the bullet, a small, misshapen lump of metal that seemed too insignificant to have caused so much damage. "One down," she murmured, dropping the bullet into a small dish. Charlie frowned. "One? You mean there's another?" Dr. Tanya nodded grimly. "There's a second entry wound near his shoulder, smaller caliber, possibly from a different shooter. It was hidden by his fur." As she worked to extract the second bullet, Charlie's mind raced. These weren't random attackers or common criminals. They had used military-style tactics, smoke grenades, and had fired with deadly accuracy. Who were they? And how had they found Echo so quickly after his rescue? "Almost got it," Dr. Tanya announced, her forceps delicately probing the wound. "There." The second bullet joined the first in the dish. Dr. Tanya cleaned both wounds thoroughly, administered antibiotics, and bandaged Echo with practiced efficiency. "Now we wait," she said, washing her hands in a basin of hot water. "The next 24 hours will be critical. If infection sets in..." She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. They all understood the gravity of Echo's condition. Noah settled on the floor beside the table where Echo now lay on a makeshift bed of blankets, his small hand resting protectively on the dog's head. "You're going to get better," he whispered. "You have to. We need to find Mom and Captain Reynolds." At the mention of Sarah, Charlie felt a renewed surge of determination. While Dr. Tanya monitored Echo's condition, he stepped outside to check his phone. There was no signal at the cabin, another reason it made such a good hiding place, though now that isolation worked against them. "I need to call my friend Frank," he told Dr. Tanya when he returned. "He's ex-sheriff, someone we can trust, but I'll have to drive back toward town to get a signal." Dr. Tanya looked up from checking Echo's bandages. "Is that safe? They could be looking for your truck." "I'll stay on the back roads, and I don't have much choice. Sarah's out there somewhere, and every minute counts." After making sure Noah was settled with Echo, and Dr. Tanya had everything she needed, Charlie took his truck and headed back down the dirt road. About 15 minutes from the cabin, his phone finally registered a single bar of service. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. Frank answered on the second ring. "Charlie, where the hell are you? Your house is all over the news. Fire department, police, the works." Charlie's heart sank. "What are they saying happened?" "Gas leak explosion, officially, but that's bull. Marisol from next door told reporters she heard gunshots. ATF is on the scene now. ATF, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. This was escalating quickly. Frank, I need your help. They took Sarah." "What? Who took Sarah? Charlie, what the hell is going on?" Charlie explained as concisely as he could. Finding Echo on the bridge, the military chip, Captain Reynolds' letter, the attack at the house. Frank listened in stunned silence. "Jesus, Charlie," he said when Charlie finished. "You've stepped in something deep here. This isn't local criminal activity. This sounds federal, maybe even black ops." "I don't care if it's the boogeyman himself," Charlie replied, his voice hard. "They have my daughter-in-law. I need to find her." Frank was silent for a moment. Officer Martinez, the canine guy, was taken to County Memorial. He's alive, but critical condition. Took 2 bullets to the chest. A small relief, at least. Can you talk to him? Find out if he managed to contact his captain or this Major Wilson before everything went south? I'll try, but Charlie, you need to be careful. From what you're telling me, these people have resources, connections. They could be monitoring phone calls, especially ones that mention specific names or details. Charlie hadn't considered that. What should I do? Sit tight. Don't use your credit cards, stay off main roads, and for God's sake, don't call anyone else. I'll do some digging and then reach out to you and Charlie. Yeah? These people tried to kill a kid. They're playing for keeps. Don't trust anyone until we know who's behind this. After hanging up, Charlie sat in his truck for a long moment, the weight of their situation pressing down on him. They were isolated, with limited resources, a critically injured dog, and a traumatized 5-year-old. And somewhere out there, Sarah was in the hands of people who had already demonstrated their willingness to kill. He was about to start the engine when headlights appeared in his rearview mirror, coming fast down the deserted country road. Charlie's heart raced. Could they have tracked his phone call? Found them already? Making a split-second decision, he killed his truck's lights and pulled onto a narrow side path, barely more than a game trail, hidden by thick undergrowth. The approaching vehicle, a large SUV with tinted windows, slowed as it passed, its headlights sweeping across the area where Charlie had been parked moments before. Charlie held his breath, one hand on the shotgun beside him. The SUV stopped completely, idling in the middle of the road. He could make out 2 silhouettes in the front seats, seemingly scanning the darkened roadside. Just when Charlie thought they would get out and search on foot, the SUV accelerated away, continuing down the road toward town. Charlie released his breath, his hands shaking slightly on the steering wheel. That had been too close. He waited 10 more minutes to ensure they weren't coming back, then carefully made his way back to the cabin using a different route, one that took him through an old logging trail he remembered from hunting trips with his father. When he finally reached the cabin, he was relieved to find everything quiet, no sign that anyone had discovered their hiding place. Inside, Noah had fallen asleep beside Echo, whose breathing seemed slightly stronger than before. Dr. Tanya looked up from her vigil with questioning eyes. "Any luck?" Charlie nodded, keeping his voice low to avoid waking Noah. "Martinez is alive, and I think I was followed on the way back. Not all the way here, but they're in the area, searching." Dr. Tanya's face paled. "How did they find us so quickly?" "I don't know. Maybe they're tracking all unusual movement on the back roads. Maybe they have access to cell towers and detected my call. These aren't ordinary criminals we're dealing with." Echo's ears twitched at the sound of their voices, and his eyes opened halfway, finding Charlie's face. Despite his injuries, the dog attempted to raise his head, as if sensing the danger Charlie was describing. "Easy, boy," Charlie murmured, gently stroking Echo's head. "You need to rest now." Echo's eyes moved to Noah's sleeping form, then back to Charlie, conveying a message as clear as words. Protect him. "I will," Charlie promised, "with my life if necessary." Dr. Tanya checked her watch. "It's nearly midnight. You should try to get some sleep. I'll keep watch over Echo and wake you if his condition changes." But sleep was the furthest thing from Charlie's mind. "You rest. I'll take first watch, not just for Echo, for anyone approaching the cabin." Taking the shotgun, Charlie positioned himself near the window that overlooked the main approach to the cabin. The night was clear, a half moon providing just enough light to see movement in the surrounding woods. The temperature had dropped, and he pulled a worn flannel blanket around his shoulders, settling in for a long vigil. His thoughts turned to Sarah. Where was she now? Was she hurt? Scared? Did she understand what was happening, or was she completely in the dark? The thought of her afraid and alone made his chest ache with a fierce, protective rage. Since his son's death, Sarah and Noah had been his whole world. He would move heaven and earth to bring her home safely. Hours passed, the night silent except for the occasional hoot of an owl or rustle of wind through the pines. Around 3 a.m, a soft whimpering from Echo drew Charlie's attention. The dog was stirring restlessly, his legs twitching as if running in a dream. Dr. Tanya, who had eventually dozed off in a chair, immediately awoke and moved to check on him. "Fever," she murmured, placing a hand on Echo's forehead. "I was afraid of this. The antibiotics aren't strong enough to prevent infection completely." She rummaged in her bag, producing more medication. "This is the strongest antibiotic I have. If this doesn't work..." She didn't finish the thought. Noah, still asleep, stirred slightly at their voices but didn't wake. The stress and trauma of the day had exhausted him completely. "Will he make it?" Charlie asked quietly, nodding toward Echo. Dr. Tanya's expression was grave. "He's lost a lot of blood, and now infection is setting in. In a proper veterinary hospital, with IV antibiotics and supportive care, his chances would be good. Here." She shook her head. "He's fighting hard, but I'm worried, Charlie." Echo's eyes opened at the sound of his name, cloudy with pain but still alert. He looked at Dr. Tanya, then at Charlie, and finally at Noah. There was an intelligence in that gaze that transcended ordinary animal awareness. "He understands," Charlie said softly. "He knows exactly what's happening and how much danger we're in." Dr. Tanya nodded. "Military working dogs, especially those in special operations units, are trained to levels most people can't comprehend. They're not just animals, they're soldiers. And Echo is clearly exceptional, even by those standards." As if confirming her assessment, Echo struggled to rise, managing to lift his head despite obvious pain. "No, Echo," Dr. Tanya gently restrained him. "You need to rest." But Echo was insistent, his gaze fixed on the cabin door. A low growl rumbled in his chest. Charlie immediately tensed, raising the shotgun and moving silently to the window. For a long moment, he saw nothing but the moonlit clearing surrounding the cabin. Then, a flicker of movement caught his eye, a shadow detaching itself from the tree line, moving with deliberate stealth toward the cabin. "Someone's out there," he whispered to Dr. Tanya. "Get Noah into the back room. Now!" Without a word, Dr. Tanya gathered the still sleeping Noah into her arms and carried him to the cabin's small rear bedroom, closing the door quietly behind them. Charlie positioned himself beside the front window, shotgun ready. The figure outside had paused at the edge of the clearing, as if assessing the cabin. In the dim moonlight, Charlie could make out little beyond a dark silhouette, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with military precision. Behind him, Echo had somehow managed to stand despite his injuries, his bandaged body trembling with the effort. The dog moved unsteadily to Charlie's side, his head low but alert, a guardian unwilling to abandon his post regardless of personal cost. "You shouldn't be up," Charlie murmured, but there was admiration in his voice. Echo's loyalty and courage were beyond anything he had ever witnessed. Outside, the figure began moving again, approaching the cabin directly now. Charlie raised the shotgun, his finger tensing on the trigger. He was no marksman, but at this range, it wouldn't matter. The figure was close enough now that Charlie could make out more details. A man in dark tactical clothing, no visible weapons, moving with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Unlike the men who had attacked the house, this individual was alone, which struck Charlie as odd. Beside him, Echo's behavior suddenly changed. Instead of growling, the dog's tail gave a single, tentative wag. His ears, which had been flattened against his head, pricked forward with interest. "What is it, boy?" Charlie whispered. "Do you know him?" The figure reached the edge of the porch, mounting the steps with deliberate slowness. He paused at the door, and for a heart-stopping moment, Charlie thought he would kick it in. Instead, there was a soft, distinct pattern of knocks, 3 quick, 2 slow. Echo's reaction was immediate and astonishing. Despite his grievous injuries, the dog barked once, a sharp sound of recognition. "Charlie?" Dr. Tanya called anxiously from the back room. "What's happening?" Before Charlie could respond, a voice came from outside the door, low, controlled, with the unmistakable cadence of military command. "Echo, status report, code Whiskey Tango 6. Echo barked twice, a specific response to the command. It was obvious to Charlie that this was some sort of recognition protocol, one that Echo clearly acknowledged. "My name is Captain James Reynolds, U.S. Army Special Forces," the voice continued. "I believe you have my dog, and I believe we're both being hunted by the same people." Charlie exchanged a stunned look with Dr. Tanya, who had appeared in the bedroom doorway. Captain Reynolds, Echo's handler, the man who was supposed to be dead, was standing on their doorstep. "How do I know it's really you?" Charlie called, keeping the shotgun trained on the door. "How do I know this isn't a trap?" "Echo knows me," the voice replied calmly, "but I understand your caution. In the ammunition box you found buried in your yard, there's a photograph of Echo and me in Afghanistan. I'm wearing a red bandana around my neck. There's a scar visible above my left eyebrow from an IED fragment. Check the photo if you have it." Charlie's heart sank. The box was left behind in the house. We had to flee. There was a pause, then, Echo has a small white patch of fur on his chest in the shape of a crescent moon. It's often not visible in photographs because of how his tactical vest sits. Only someone who has personally cared for him would know it's there. Charlie looked at Echo, who was staring intently at the door, his entire body vibrating with what could only be described as hope. Carefully, Charlie parted the fur on Echo's chest. There, just as described, was a small white crescent. "Let me see him, please," the voice said, and for the first time, Charlie detected a note of emotion breaking through the professional demeanor. "I've been searching for him for weeks." Charlie made his decision. Keeping the shotgun ready but lowered, he approached the door and carefully opened it. The man standing on the porch matched the photographs they had seen. Tall, powerfully built, with short-cropped dark hair and the mentioned scar above his left eyebrow. He wore civilian clothes, dark and nondescript, but his bearing was unmistakably military. His eyes, however, were fixed not on Charlie but on Echo, who stood trembling in the middle of the cabin floor. "Echo," he breathed, and the single word contained a world of emotion. Echo's response was immediate and heartbreaking, with a high-pitched whine that seemed to contain all the pain and relief and loyalty of his faithful heart. The German Shepherd lurched forward, his injured body giving out halfway to the door. He collapsed on the cabin floor, still whining, still trying desperately to reach his handler. Captain Reynolds moved past Charlie as if he wasn't there, dropping to his knees beside Echo. His hands gently cradled the dog's head, examining the bandages, his face a mask of controlled anguish. "What did they do to you, boy?" he murmured. Echo's tail thumped weakly against the floor, his eyes never leaving Reynolds' face. The reunion was so nakedly emotional that Charlie had to look away, feeling like an intruder on a deeply personal moment. Dr. Tanya approached cautiously. "Captain Reynolds, I'm Dr. Tanya Reeves. I've been treating Echo's injuries. He was shot twice during an attack on our home." Reynolds looked up, his expression shifting back to professional assessment. "Gunshot wounds? How severe?" "One bullet to the thigh, another to the shoulder. I've removed both, but there's infection setting in. He needs proper medical care, antibiotics, possibly a blood transfusion." Reynolds nodded grimly. "I have medical supplies in my vehicle, military-grade antibiotics, IV fluids." He looked back at Echo, stroking the dog's head with a gentleness that belied his hard exterior. "Hang on, partner. I'm here now." "How did you find us?" Charlie asked, still wary despite the emotional reunion playing out before him. Reynolds stood, though his hand remained on Echo's head. "I've been tracking the people who are after Echo. When they suddenly mobilized this morning, I knew they'd found him. I followed them to your house but arrived too late. Then I traced your movements based on local police chatter. They're looking for you too, by the way. Alvarez men have contacts in local law enforcement." "Alvarez?" Charlie questioned. "Victor Alvarez, private military contractor, officially. Black Ops specialist and arms dealer, unofficially. He's the man behind everything. The reason Echo and I became targets." "They have my daughter-in-law," Charlie said, his voice hard. "They took her from her workplace as leverage." Reynolds' expression darkened. "I'm sorry. That fits Alvarez's profile. He uses civilians as pressure points when direct approaches fail." He surveyed the cabin. "This location is temporarily secure, but it won't remain so for long. Alvarez has resources, technology. They'll find us eventually." "What about my mom?" A small voice interrupted from the bedroom doorway. Noah stood there in his rumpled clothes, his young face set in a determined expression that broke Charlie's heart. "Are you going to help us find her?" Reynolds turned, clearly surprised by the presence of a child. "Who's this?" "My grandson Noah," Charlie explained. "He's the one who insisted we rescue Echo from the bridge." Understanding dawned in Reynolds' eyes. He knelt to Noah's level, his demeanor softening. "Your mom was taken because of Echo and me. I'm very sorry about that. But yes, I am absolutely going to help find her. That's a promise. Soldier to soldier." Noah studied him seriously. "Echo is your dog. He missed you a lot." "I missed him too," Reynolds replied, his voice rough with emotion. "More than I can say." Noah approached Echo, kneeling beside the wounded dog. "See, Echo? I told you we'd find Captain Reynolds. Now you just have to get better so we can save my mom." Echo's tail thumped weakly against the floor in response. Reynolds watched this interaction with visible surprise. "You've bonded with him," he observed. "That's unusual. Echo is trained to work with only one handler, me." Noah has a special way with him, Dr. Tanya explained. From the moment we rescued Echo, they formed a connection. He responds to Noah in a way I've never seen a military working dog respond to a civilian, especially a child. Reynolds seemed to consider this information carefully. Echo is no ordinary military dog. He was part of an experimental training program, enhanced cognitive processing, advanced problem-solving capabilities. The program was classified off the books. Is that why they put that special chip in him? Noah asked innocently. Reynolds' head snapped up. You know about the chip? Dr. Tanya found it on the X-ray, Charlie explained. And your letter mentioned it contains evidence about what you and Echo discovered. Reynolds nodded slowly. Not exactly. The chip doesn't contain evidence. It contains coordinates, access codes. It's a key. A key to what? Dr. Tanya asked. To the evidence we gathered about Alvarez's operation. I hid it all. Documentation, video footage, financial records, in a secure location before I went underground. The data on Echo's chip is the only way to access it.
And that's why they want him dead, Charlie concluded. To destroy the evidence.
Exactly. Without Echo's chip, the evidence remains locked away forever. That's why I had to make everyone believe I was dead, to buy time to find Echo and expose Alvarez. Noah, who had been listening intently to this adult conversation, suddenly spoke up. But now we can save my mom, right? We have Echo and the chip, so the bad men will trade my mom to get it back. The room fell silent at the child's simple, logical solution. Reynolds exchanged a look with Charlie, neither man wanting to explain to the boy that people like Alvarez didn't operate on such straightforward terms. It's not that simple, buddy, Charlie began gently. But Reynolds interrupted, his expression thoughtful. Actually, it might be. Not a trade. That would never work. But we could use the chip as bait. Draw Alvarez out. Force him to bring your mother to a location of our choosing. That's incredibly risky, Dr. Tanya protested. These people have already shown they're willing to kill. Every option we have is risky, Reynolds countered. But I know how Alvarez thinks. He wants that chip more than anything. It's his only vulnerability, and he knows it. Charlie considered this. Even if we agree to this plan, Echo's in no condition to travel, and we'd need backup, resources. Reynolds nodded. I have contacts, people I trust who aren't on Alvarez's payroll. As for Echo, he looked down at his wounded partner with obvious concern. Let me get the medical supplies from my vehicle. We'll stabilize him first, then make our plan. As Reynolds left to retrieve his supplies, Charlie knelt beside Noah, who was still stroking Echo's head with gentle fingers. You doing okay, buddy? He asked softly. Noah nodded, though his eyes were troubled. Is Mom scared, Grandpa? Charlie wished he could offer easy reassurances, but he respected Noah too much to lie. Probably, buddy, but your mom is one of the strongest people I know, and now we have Captain Reynolds to help us find her. Echo will help too, Noah said with certainty. Once he gets better. He leaned down, whispering in the dog's ear. You have to get better, Echo. Mom needs you. I need you. Echo's eyes, though clouded with pain, focused on Noah's face. Slowly, deliberately, he raised his head just enough to lick the boy's cheek. A promise, it seemed, that he understood the importance of his recovery. When Reynolds returned, he carried a military-style medical kit far more sophisticated than Dr. Tanya's emergency supplies. Working together, the captain and the veterinarian administered IV antibiotics, checked Echo's wounds, and replaced his bandages. Throughout the treatment, Reynolds maintained a running commentary to Echo in a low, reassuring voice, explaining each procedure as if the dog could understand every word. He does understand, Noah said matter-of-factly, watching this interaction. Echo's really smart. Reynolds glanced at the boy, a flicker of surprise crossing his face. Yes, he is. Smarter than most people realize. He returned his attention to Echo. The fever should break by morning if the antibiotics do their job. Once he's stable, we'll move to a more secure location. And then? Charlie asked. Reynolds' expression hardened. Then we take the fight to Alvarez. We use Echo's chip to set a trap, extract your daughter-in-law, and gather enough evidence to bring Alvarez down permanently. How do we even find Alvarez? Dr. Tanya asked. He sounds like someone who stays well hidden. We don't find him, Reynolds replied. We make him find us, on our terms. He looked down at Echo, a complex mixture of emotions crossing his face. But first, my partner needs to heal. None of this works without Echo. As if in response, Echo's tail thumped once against the cabin floor. Weak but determined, a soldier acknowledging his mission. The night deepened around the cabin, the small group of unlikely allies brought together by chance, compassion, and a special dog named Echo. Outside, somewhere in the darkness, both Sarah and Victor Alvarez waited. One, a beloved mother whose absence left a hole in their hearts, the other, a dangerous enemy who would stop at nothing to protect his secrets. And between them all was Echo, the wounded guardian, carrying within him the key that could save them, or destroy them all. Dawn broke over the cabin with fingers of pale gold light filtering through the pine branches. Inside, Captain Reynolds sat beside Echo, monitoring his condition with the focused attention of someone accustomed to long vigils. The military-grade antibiotics had done their work through the night. Echo's fever had broken, and though still weak, his breathing was stronger, more regular. Charlie emerged from the small back bedroom, where he had finally convinced Noah to get some proper sleep. Dr. Tanya had dozed off in an armchair, her medical bag still open beside her. "How is he?" Charlie asked quietly, nodding toward Echo. Reynolds looked up, the night stubble darkening his jawline. "Better. The infection's responding to the antibiotics. He's tough, tougher than most soldiers I've served with." Charlie poured himself a cup of coffee from the pot warming on the propane stove. "You want to tell me the full story now, while the others are asleep?" Reynolds considered this, then nodded. "You deserve to know what you've been dragged into." He accepted the cup of coffee Charlie offered him, taking a long drink before beginning. 8 months ago, Echo and I were deployed to a classified location in Eastern Europe. Officially, we were there to provide security for a diplomatic mission. Unofficially, we were investigating reports that American weapons were ending up in the hands of terrorist cells. He paused, checking Echo's IV line before continuing. What we found was much bigger than missing weapons. Alvarez had been running a shadow operation for years, selling not just weapons, but also intelligence, military technology, even chemical agents to the highest bidders, all while operating under the protection of certain elements within our own government who were either complicit or being blackmailed. "And you gathered evidence," Charlie prompted. Reynolds nodded. "Everything we could find, transaction records, video surveillance, communications logs, enough to not just bring down Alvarez, but also expose everyone protecting him. But before we could bring it back through official channels, we were ambushed. Our extraction team was compromised. Everyone except Echo and me was killed. So you went off the grid," Charlie concluded. "Had to. I faked my death, hid the evidence in a secure location, and encoded the access information into Echo's chip. We got separated during our escape. I've been searching for him ever since, staying one step ahead of Alvarez's kill teams." Charlie mulled this over, the enormity of their situation becoming clearer. And now they have Sarah as leverage. "Yes, Alvarez knows the value of Echo's chip. He'll use your daughter-in-law to force a trade, her life for the chip and Echo. Would that work? Could we make that trade?" Reynolds' expression hardened. "Alvarez doesn't leave loose ends. If we hand over Echo and the chip, he'll eliminate everyone who knows about his operation. Your daughter-in-law, you, Noah, Dr. Tanya, all of you would be marked for death." Charlie's hands tightened around his coffee mug. "So, what's our play?" "I have contacts, a small team of former operators who owe me their lives. They're already on their way here. With their help, we set up a controlled exchange scenario. We make Alvarez think he's getting what he wants, while actually leading him into a trap. And Sarah? We insist she be present for the exchange. Once we confirm she's there and unharmed, we spring the trap." "Sounds dangerous," Charlie observed, though there was no criticism in his voice, only pragmatic assessment. "Every option is dangerous at this point," Reynolds replied, "but this gives us the best chance of getting your daughter-in-law back alive and bringing Alvarez to justice." A small sound from the doorway made both men turn. Noah stood there in his rumpled clothes, his hair tousled from sleep, clutching his teddy bear. "Is Echo better?" he asked, his voice small but steady. Reynolds softened visibly at the sight of the boy. "Yes, he's doing much better. Would you like to see him?" Noah nodded, crossing the room to kneel beside Echo. The German shepherd's eyes opened at the boy's approach, and his tail gave a weak thump of recognition. "Hi, Echo," Noah whispered, gently stroking the dog's head. "I knew you'd get better. Captain Reynolds found us, just like I said he would." Echo struggled to lift his head, managing to lick Noah's hand once before settling back down, his eyes drifting between the boy and his handler as if ensuring both were safe. "He likes you a lot," Reynolds observed, genuine surprise in his voice. "That's unusual. Echo was trained to be selective about who he trusts."
"Noah has that effect," Charlie said proudly. "Always has."
Noah looked up at Reynolds, his young face serious. "My mom taught me that when someone's scared or hurt, you have to be extra kind to them. I think Echo was really scared when we found him on the bridge." Reynolds nodded, a shadow crossing his face. He had every reason to be. He hesitated, then added, "Thank you for saving him, Noah. You're a very brave young man." Noah beamed at the praise, especially coming from a real soldier. "Are you going to help us get my mom back?" "Absolutely," Reynolds promised. "My friends and I have a plan, but I need your help too." "Me?" Noah's eyes widened. "Echo trusts you. That makes you very important to our mission. Can I count on you to be brave a little bit longer?" Noah straightened his shoulders, nodding solemnly. "I can be brave, for Mom and for Echo." Dr. Tanya stirred from her chair, awakened by their conversation. She blinked blearily, then immediately moved to check on Echo. "His vitals are stronger," she confirmed after a brief examination. "The antibiotics are working. He's nowhere near full strength, but he's stable." "Good," Reynolds said, "because we need to move soon. This location has been secure, but we can't count on that lasting." "Move where?" Dr. Tanya asked. "I have a safe house about 2 hours from here. My team will meet us there. It has the equipment we need to extract the data from Echo's chip." Charlie frowned. "Is Echo strong enough to travel?" Reynolds looked down at his partner, his expression a mixture of concern and determination. "He'll have to be. Staying here is riskier than moving him." As if understanding the gravity of the situation, Echo struggled to his feet despite his injuries. He swayed slightly, but remained standing, his eyes fixed on Reynolds with unwavering loyalty. "See," Noah said proudly, "Echo knows what to do. He's a hero dog." Reynolds' hand moved to rest on Echo's head, steadying him. "Yes, he is." There was no mistaking the pride and affection in his voice. Within the hour, they had packed up their minimal belongings and prepared to leave. Reynolds insisted they take his vehicle, a nondescript SUV with tinted windows and, Charlie suspected, various modifications that weren't standard factory options. "What about my truck?" Charlie asked. "Leave it," Reynolds advised. "They might be tracking it by now." Echo was carefully settled in the back seat, with Noah beside him, continuing his self-appointed role as the dog's protector and friend. Dr. Tanya sat on Echo's other side, prepared to monitor his condition during the journey. As they pulled away from the cabin, Charlie took one last look at the small structure that had provided them temporary refuge. He couldn't shake the feeling that they were leaving something important behind, perhaps the last moments of normalcy before they plunged fully into Reynolds' shadowy world of espionage and danger. The journey to the safe house was tense but uneventful. Reynolds drove with the hyper-awareness of someone accustomed to being hunted, taking circuitous routes and frequently checking for tails. Echo slept for most of the trip, his head resting on Noah's lap, the boy's small hand never leaving the dog's fur. The safe house, when they finally reached it, proved to be a converted barn on an isolated property, surrounded by dense woods and approached via a long, private drive. The exterior was weathered and unremarkable, but inside, Charlie was surprised to find modern amenities and what appeared to be sophisticated security systems.
"Home sweet home," Reynolds said dryly, helping Echo from the vehicle, "at least temporarily."
The German Shepherd moved with more strength than he had shown at the cabin, though still favoring his injured leg. Inside, he immediately conducted a careful inspection of the premises, limping from room to room as if performing a security check, before finally settling near a large window where he could observe the approach to the building. "Old habits," Reynolds explained, watching his partner with a small smile. "He always secures the perimeter first, no matter how injured he is." Reynolds' team arrived precisely when expected. 3 hard-looking men who introduced themselves only by single names: Maddox, Reese, and Turner. They moved with the same controlled efficiency as Reynolds, quickly securing the perimeter and setting up additional equipment. Echo greeted each man with recognition, accepting their brief pats and murmured greetings before returning to his post by the window. The new arrivals treated the dog with a respect that spoke volumes about his reputation among their ranks. "Is that the kid who found Echo?" Maddox, a tall man with a scarred eyebrow, asked quietly, nodding toward Noah.
Reynolds nodded. Noah and his grandfather, Charlie, they saved Echo's life.
The men exchanged meaningful looks. Then we owe them, Turner said simply. The statement carried the weight of an oath. With the team assembled, Reynolds called everyone together for a briefing. Even Noah was included, seated beside Charlie at the large table where a map had been spread out. Here's the situation, Reynolds began. Alvarez is holding Sarah Matthews at this location. He indicated a point on the map, a compound about 50 miles away. It's a private facility ostensibly used for corporate retreats, but actually one of Alvarez's operational centers. We have confirmation she's there and alive, but under heavy guard. How did you get that information? Charlie asked. I still have contacts in intelligence who owe me favors, Reynolds replied. Plus, Maddox did a recon flyover earlier today. He nodded to the tall operative. Saw her being moved between buildings, Maddox confirmed. She appeared unharmed, though under escort. Charlie felt a surge of relief so powerful it left him momentarily dizzy. Sarah was alive. They had found her. Our plan, Reynolds continued, is to negotiate an exchange, Echo and the chip for Sarah's safe return. We'll insist on neutral ground for the transfer. He pointed to another location on the map, an abandoned quarry. Here, open terrain, limited cover, which works both for and against us. We'll have snipers positioned here and here. His finger traced 2 elevated positions. Won't Alvarez suspect a trap? Dr. Tanya asked. Of course, Reynolds acknowledged. He'll bring his own security team, counter snipers, probably an extraction helicopter, but he wants Echo and that chip badly enough to take calculated risks. As the planning continued late into the night, each detail was meticulously reviewed and refined. Echo remained alert throughout, as if understanding the importance of the discussion. Occasionally, his eyes would drift to Noah, watching the boy with a protective intensity that hadn't diminished despite Reynolds' return. By midnight, the plan was set. Reynolds would make contact with Alvarez at dawn, using a secure channel established through his intelligence contacts. The exchange would be scheduled for noon, giving them time to position their team and secure the area. Everyone should get some rest, Reynolds advised as they wrapped up. Tomorrow will be high stress, and we all need to be sharp. As dawn broke, the safe house was already a hive of activity. Reynolds had made contact with Alvarez and established the terms of the exchange. Weapons were checked, communications tested, positions confirmed. Echo, who seemed to have gained strength overnight, stood attentively as Reynolds checked his bandages one last time. You sure he's up for this? Charlie asked, watching the dog with concern. He doesn't have to do much, Reynolds assured him. Just be present for the exchange. The real work will be done by our team. Dr. Tanya approached with a small medical kit. I've prepared emergency supplies just in case, and I'll be stationed with the medical vehicle at the rendezvous point. Reynolds nodded his appreciation. Remember, if anything goes wrong, your priority is getting Noah and Echo to safety. The rest of us can handle ourselves. The drive to the quarry was tense and silent. They traveled in 3 separate vehicles, Reynolds with Echo in the lead car, Charlie and Noah with Turner in the middle, and the rest of the team bringing up the rear. As they approached the designated meeting point, Reynolds directed each vehicle to its predetermined position. This is where you stay, Turner told Noah firmly, as he parked their SUV behind a stand of trees about half a mile from the exchange point. No matter what you hear or see, you don't leave this vehicle without my direct order. Understand? Noah nodded, his face pale but determined. I understand. Charlie squeezed his grandson's shoulder. I'll be back with your mom before you know it, buddy. Promise? Noah's voice was small but steady. Promise, Charlie replied, praying it was a vow he could keep. As Charlie moved to join Reynolds at the primary position, Echo unexpectedly broke away from his handler, limping swiftly to the SUV where Noah waited. Before anyone could stop him, the German Shepherd reared up, placing his front paws on the open window to touch his nose briefly to Noah's face. It's okay, Echo, Noah assured him. I'll be right here waiting for you. Echo held the boy's gaze for a moment longer, then dropped back to all fours and returned to Reynolds' side, ready for whatever came next. The quarry was a stark, open space, a bowl of exposed rock and gravel with limited vegetation for cover. Reynolds and Charlie took position near a stone outcropping at one end, while Maddox and Reese moved to their sniper positions on the ridge above. Alvarez is prompt, I'll give him that, Reynolds muttered, checking his watch as a convoy of black SUVs appeared at the opposite entrance to the quarry. 3 vehicles, probably 8 to 10 men, plus Alvarez himself. Charlie's attention was fixed on the second SUV, where he caught a glimpse of a figure in the back seat. Sarah, her blonde hair unmistakable even at this distance. "I see her," he said, his voice tight with emotion. Reynolds nodded. "Remember the plan. I do the talking. Echo stays with me. You focus solely on Sarah. Once she's clear, you get her to the extraction vehicle immediately, no matter what else happens." The lead SUV stopped about 50 yards away. A tall, distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit emerged. Victor Alvarez, Charlie presumed. 2 armed guards flanked him immediately, while others took defensive positions around the vehicles. "Captain Reynolds," Alvarez called, his voice carrying across the quarry with a slight accent. "I was beginning to think you were truly dead. I'm glad to see reports of your demise were exaggerated." "Wish I could say the same about your operation," Reynolds replied coldly, "but it's very much alive and well, isn't it, Victor?" Alvarez gave a thin smile. "Business is good, yes. Speaking of business, I believe you have something that belongs to me. And you have someone who belongs to us," Charlie couldn't help interjecting, his eyes fixed on the SUV where Sarah was being held. Alvarez turned his attention to Charlie, studying him with clinical interest. "Ah, the protective grandfather. How touching. Rest assured Mrs. Matthews has been treated well. She's quite resilient, your daughter-in-law." The casual way Alvarez spoke about Sarah made Charlie's blood boil, but Reynolds placed a restraining hand on his arm. "The terms were clear," Reynolds called. "Send Sarah over first, then you get Echo and the chip." Alvarez laughed. "I'm afraid that's not how this works, Captain. The dog first, then the woman." Reynolds and Charlie exchanged glances. This deviation from the agreed terms was expected, but still complicated matters. "Halfway," Reynolds countered. "Sarah walks to the middle of the quarry. Then I bring Echo to meet her. They pass each other. Everyone gets what they want." Alvarez considered this, then nodded. "Acceptable. But the dog comes with the chip access codes. No delays, no tricks." Reynolds raised a hand in acknowledgement, then whispered into his radio, "All positions, prepare for exchange. Be ready for anything." Alvarez turned and gave a signal to his men. The door of the second SUV opened, and Sarah emerged, escorted by an armed guard. Even from a distance, Charlie could see that her face was bruised, her movement stiff, but she was alive and walking under her own power. "Mom," Charlie breathed, relief washing over him. The guard removed Sarah's restraints and gave her a push toward the center of the quarry. She began walking slowly, her head held high despite her obvious fear. Reynolds unclipped Echo's tactical leash. "Echo, forward," he commanded softly. "Gentle pace." Echo moved forward, limping but determined, his eyes fixed on Sarah's approaching figure. The distance between them closed gradually, tension mounting with each step. When they were about 10 feet apart, Sarah faltered, clearly recognizing the dog from Noah's descriptions. "River?" she whispered. Echo paused, his ears perked forward at the sound of his temporary name. In that moment of hesitation, Charlie saw Alvarez make a subtle hand signal to someone out of view. "It's a trap!" Reynolds shouted, just as a red targeting dot appeared on Echo's side. Multiple things happened simultaneously. Reynolds dove forward, shouting command words that sent Echo racing towards Sarah. The crack of a sniper rifle echoed across the quarry as Maddox fired from his position, taking out Alvarez's hidden shooter. Sarah dropped to the ground as Echo reached her, the dog positioning his body protectively over hers despite his injuries. "Get down!" Charlie tackled Reynolds as bullets began flying from both sides, the exchange deteriorating into the very firefight they had hoped to avoid. "Sarah," Charlie called into his radio, "if you can hear me, stay down. Echo will protect you." Through the chaos, Charlie could see Echo covering Sarah with his body, growling fiercely at anyone who approached, friend or foe. The dog's military training had kicked in fully. He had identified Sarah as someone to protect and was fulfilling that mission with unwavering dedication. "We need to get to them," Charlie shouted to Reynolds over the gunfire. Reynolds nodded grimly. "Cover me." He darted forward in a crouching run, using the minimal available cover as he made his way towards Sarah and Echo. Charlie provided covering fire, his hands steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Above them, Maddox and Reese were engaged with Alvarez's snipers, the sharp report of their rifles punctuating the chaotic soundscape. Alvarez himself had retreated to his vehicle, shouting orders to his men. Reynolds reached Sarah and Echo, dropping to the ground beside them. "Sarah, are you hit?" She shook her head, her face pale with fear but remarkably composed. "No, I'm okay. The dog, Echo, he protected me." Echo remained in guardian position, his body tense, eyes scanning constantly for threats. "We need to move," Reynolds urged. "Charlie, we're coming to you. 3, 2, 1. They made a break for it, Reynolds providing cover while Sarah ran. Echo limping, but keeping pace beside her. Charlie's heart soared as his daughter-in-law reached him, falling into his arms with a sob of relief. "Noah?" she asked immediately. "Is he safe?" "He's fine," Charlie assured her, "waiting for you half a mile back." "Alvarez is retreating," Maddox's voice came through the radio. "He's heading for the helicopter." Reynolds made a split-second decision. Let him go. Our priority is getting everyone out safely. But Echo had other ideas. The moment he heard Alvarez's name, the German Shepherd's demeanor changed completely. With a determined growl, he suddenly broke away from the group, racing toward Alvarez's retreating figure, with surprising speed despite his injuries. "Echo, no!" Reynolds shouted, but it was too late. Echo launched himself at Alvarez just as the man was about to enter his vehicle, knocking him to the ground with the full force of his body. Alvarez cried out in pain and surprise, his personal guards momentarily frozen by the unexpected attack. The German Shepherd didn't bite or maul Alvarez as he could have. Instead, he pinned the man down, his teeth bared in a silent snarl just inches from Alvarez's throat, restraining, not killing. Reynolds sprinted toward them, weapon raised. "Echo, hold!" he commanded, the specialized training phrase causing Echo to maintain his position without escalating the attack. Alvarez's men raised their weapons, but Reynolds was faster. "Tell them to stand down," he shouted at Alvarez, "or my next command will have very different results." Alvarez, his face contorted with rage and fear, gestured for his men to lower their weapons. "Call off your dog, Reynolds. This isn't over. I have connections you can't imagine." "It's over for you," Reynolds countered, reaching Alvarez and keeping his weapon trained on the man's head. "Echo, guard." Echo shifted position slightly, maintaining his intimidating stance while Reynolds quickly disarmed Alvarez and zip-tied his hands. "The authorities are already on their way," Reynolds informed him coldly, "along with several interested parties from intelligence agencies who have been watching your operation for months. The evidence from Echo's chip is being uploaded to secure servers as we speak." Alvarez's face drained of color as he realized the full extent of his defeat. "You can't possibly have broken the encryption." "I didn't need to," Reynolds replied with grim satisfaction. Echo's chip was never just a storage device. It's been transmitting data to secure drops ever since we rescued him. Every location he's been, every person he's encountered, all documented and verified. In the distance, the sound of approaching helicopters and vehicles signaled the arrival of the authorities Reynolds had mentioned. The remaining members of Alvarez's team, seeing their leader captured and reinforcements arriving, began surrendering to Maddox and Reese. Reynolds placed a gentle hand on Echo's head. "Good boy, Echo. Stand down now." The German Shepherd released his hold on Alvarez, but remained vigilantly at Reynolds' side, his mission completed with the same unwavering loyalty he had always shown. Charlie and Sarah had reached them by this point, Sarah staring at Echo with newfound appreciation. "So this is the famous river," she said softly. Noah wasn't exaggerating about how special he is. Echo's ears perked up at the sound of Noah's name, his head turning as if expecting to see the boy. "Let's get you back to your son," Charlie said, his arm around Sarah's shoulders. "He's been incredibly brave through all of this." As they made their way back to the vehicles, leaving Reynolds to coordinate with the arriving authorities, Echo limped alongside them, still apparently considering Sarah his responsibility to protect. When they reached the SUV where Noah waited, Turner had his hands full trying to keep the boy inside the vehicle. The moment Noah spotted his mother, he broke free, running toward her with a cry of pure joy. "Mom! Mom!" Sarah dropped to her knees, catching Noah in a fierce embrace as he crashed into her. "Oh, my baby," she sobbed, holding him as if she would never let go again. "I missed you so much." "The bad men took you, but we saved you," Noah explained through his own tears. "Echo helped. He was so brave, Mom. So brave." Echo approached the reunited mother and son cautiously, as if uncertain of his role now that his mission was complete. Noah reached out one hand to the dog while still clinging to his mother with the other. "See, Echo? I told you we'd find her. I told you everything would be okay." Echo's tail wagged gently, and he pressed his nose into Noah's palm, accepting the boy's gratitude and affection. Dr. Tanya arrived with the medical vehicle, immediately moving to check Sarah's injuries. "Nothing serious," she confirmed after a quick examination. "Bruises, mild dehydration, exhaustion, but you'll be fine with some rest and care." "What happens now?" Sarah asked, looking toward the quarry where authorities were taking Alvarez and his men into custody. "Now," Charlie said, sitting heavily on a nearby rock, the adrenaline finally wearing off. "We go home, or what's left of it anyway." "Our house," Sarah began, suddenly remembering. "Insurance will cover it," Charlie assured her, "and you can stay with me until it's rebuilt. The important thing is that we're all safe." Echo had settled beside Noah, his head resting on the boy's lap as they sat together on the ground. Despite everything the dog had endured, being separated from Reynolds, tortured, left to die, shot twice during their escape, he seemed content now, his mission completed, his people safe. Reynolds approached, having handed Alvarez over to the proper authorities. He paused, taking in the scene of Noah and Echo together. "He really does have a special bond with your boy," he remarked to Sarah, who was watching the pair with a thoughtful expression. "Noah has always had a way with animals," she replied, "but this seems different." Reynolds nodded. "It is different. Echo was trained to trust only his handler, me. His ability to form this kind of bond with Noah is unprecedented in military working dogs of his caliber." "Will you take him back now?" Noah asked, overhearing their conversation. His arms tightened protectively around Echo's neck. Reynolds knelt down to Noah's level, his expression gentle but serious. "Echo is a military working dog, Noah. He has special training, special abilities that are valuable to our country." Noah's face fell, though he tried to hide his disappointment. Tears welled in his eyes, but he nodded bravely. "I understand. He belongs with you." His voice broke slightly at the end. Reynolds looked at Echo, who was watching this exchange with intelligent eyes, his head still resting on Noah's lap, despite his handler being just feet away. "But," Reynolds continued carefully, "Echo has been severely injured in the line of duty. Military regulations allow for injured working dogs to be medically retired and placed with suitable families." Hope bloomed in Noah's eyes. "You mean—" "It's not entirely my decision," Reynolds cautioned. "There would be paperwork, evaluations, home visits. The military doesn't just give away highly trained dogs. But given Echo's unique circumstances and your role in saving his life," he smiled slightly, "let's just say I have some influence in these matters." Sarah looked stunned. "You would really consider letting us adopt him?" Reynolds rose to his feet, his expression thoughtful. "I've been Echo's handler for 3 years. In that time, I've never seen him respond to anyone else the way he responds to Noah. There's a connection there that transcends training." He paused, then added more softly, "And to be honest, the life Echo and I lead, always on missions, always in danger, it takes a toll. After what he's been through, maybe he deserves something different, something peaceful." "We would take such good care of him," Noah promised earnestly. "I'd learn all about German shepherds and military dogs. And he could sleep in my room every night so he wouldn't be scared." Reynolds exchanged a look with Charlie, who nodded his support. "We'd make it work," the older man confirmed. "That dog's already part of our family, whether we planned it or not." "Then I'll start the process," Reynolds decided. "It might take some time, a few months at least. During that period, Echo would technically remain military property, but he could stay with you on an extended medical leave." Noah's face lit up with joy, so pure that everyone around him couldn't help but smile. "Did you hear that, Echo? You get to stay with us." Echo's tail thumped against the ground, and he sat up, looking solemnly from Reynolds to Noah, as if understanding exactly what was being discussed. Then, in a gesture that seemed deliberate, he rose to his feet and walked to stand between his handler and the boy, looking back and forth between them. "I think he's asking for your permission," Charlie said quietly to Reynolds. The captain nodded, a bittersweet smile crossing his face. He knelt down, placing both hands on Echo's head. "You did your duty, partner, above and beyond. Now it's time for a new mission." He leaned in close, whispering something in the dog's ear that only Echo could hear. The German shepherd held Reynolds' gaze for a long moment, an unspoken communication passing between them. Then he turned and walked back to Noah, sitting down beside the boy with quiet finality.
"What did you tell him?" Noah asked curiously.
"I told him to take care of you," Reynolds replied simply, "and to remember his training. Once a hero, always a hero." 3 months later, the Matthews family gathered in their newly rebuilt home for a special occasion. The living room was decorated with balloons and a banner that read, "Welcome Home, Echo," in Noah's careful handwriting. Dr. Tanya was there, along with Charlie and a few close friends who had helped the family recover from the trauma of their ordeal. Sarah, who had initially been hesitant about adopting a military working dog, had become Echo's fiercest advocate. The German Shepherd had proven himself to be not just protective, but gentle, intelligent, and surprisingly well-suited to family life. He slept at the foot of Noah's bed every night, walked him to the bus stop each morning, and had become Sarah's shadow whenever Noah was at school. "The paperwork's finally complete," she announced, holding up an official-looking document. "As of today, Echo is officially a Matthews." Noah, who had been watching anxiously by the window, suddenly perked up. "He's here!" A black SUV had pulled into the driveway. Captain Reynolds stepped out, now dressed in civilian clothes, but still carrying himself with military bearing. In his hands was a small wooden box. Echo, recognizing his former handler, gave a single bark of greeting, but remained seated beside Noah, his place now clear. Reynolds entered the house to warm greetings from everyone. He smiled when he saw Echo, healthy and strong again, his coat gleaming, the scars from his ordeal barely visible beneath his thick fur. "You look good, partner," he said, kneeling to stroke the dog's head. "Civilian life suits you." Echo accepted the affection with dignity, his tail wagging gently, but he made no move to leave Noah's side. "I brought something," Reynolds said, presenting the wooden box to Noah. "Echo's service medals. He earned every one of them. I thought you should have them." Noah accepted the box with reverent hands, opening it carefully to reveal several gleaming medals nestled in velvet. "Thank you," he whispered. "I'll keep them safe." "I know you will," Reynolds replied, "just like you'll keep him safe." He joined them for cake and conversation, sharing stories of Echo's earlier missions, the age-appropriate versions, at least. As the afternoon wore on, Charlie found him standing by the back door, watching Echo play fetch with Noah in the yard. "Having second thoughts?" Charlie asked, handing Reynolds a cup of coffee. The captain shook his head. "No. Seeing them together, I made the right call. Echo deserves this life after everything he gave to the service." He sipped his coffee, then added, "Besides, I'm being deployed again next month. Knowing Echo has a good home makes that easier." "You'll always be welcome here," Charlie assured him. "You're a part of his family, which makes you part of ours." Reynolds nodded his appreciation, his eyes still on Echo and Noah. "You know, the military spent millions developing that experimental canine program. Enhanced intelligence, problem-solving abilities, adaptive bonding. But in the end, all the science in the world couldn't predict what would happen when a scared dog met a brave little boy on a bridge." Outside, Noah had collapsed in a fit of giggles as Echo showered him with affectionate licks. The German Shepherd's tail wagged joyously, all the dignity of his military bearing temporarily abandoned in the simple pleasure of playing with his boy. "He might be retired," Charlie observed with a smile, "but he's still saving lives in his own way. Noah hasn't had nightmares about losing his dad since Echo came to live with us." Sarah's smiling again. "Even I'm sleeping better knowing he's on guard." "Once a hero, always a hero," Reynolds repeated softly. As the sun began to set, casting long golden shadows across the yard, Echo paused in his play, his head lifting as if hearing something beyond human perception. He looked toward the horizon for a long moment, alert and vigilant, the soldier within him never truly gone. Then Noah called his name, and Echo turned back, trotting to the boy's side without hesitation. Whatever ghosts or echoes of his past life might occasionally call to him, his choice was clear. His new mission, protecting this family, loving this boy, was the most important one he would ever undertake. And as Noah wrapped his arms around Echo's neck, burying his face in the dog's fur, it was clear that some bonds transcend training, transcend even the darkest trauma. The bridge where they had first met had been renamed by the town council, Second Chance Bridge, with a small plaque commemorating the unlikely friendship between a boy and a dog that had changed both their lives forever. But for Echo and Noah, no plaque or monument was needed. They had found in each other exactly what each needed most: unconditional love, unwavering loyalty, and the courage to face whatever challenges life might bring next, together. If you were touched by this incredible story of bravery, compassion, and the unbreakable bond between a boy and his dog, please like, share, and subscribe. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear how Echo and Noah's journey touched your heart.